Welcome to a meeting of your Planning Commission, the official local planning agency for the cities of Tampa, Temple Terrace, Plant City, and unincorporated Hillsborough County. The Planning Commission provides innovative leadership and long-range vision that contributes to the creation of a thriving, prosperous community that offers opportunity, fairness, and choice in how we live, move, learn, work, and play. For more information about the Planning Commission, please call 813-272-5940. Follow us on social media or visit our website at planhillsborough.org.
Welcome to the June 10th, 2019 regular meeting of the Hillsborough County City-County Planning Commission. We thank you for attending this meeting. Your comments and participation is encouraged. Please sign the register at the rear of the room and turn off any devices that may be a distraction. If you wish to address the Commission on agenda items, we ask that you please complete the appropriate public comment sign-in sheet at the rear of the room now. When addressing the Commission, please state your name, address, and speak directly into the microphone. For those of you who are not familiar with this process, the meeting will be conducted as follows. The agenda item will be introduced. Staff will give their presentation with a 15-minute time limit. The applicant will be given the opportunity to make a presentation with a 15-minute time limit. Following presentations, members of the public may address the Planning Commission when recognized by the chairman. Public comment will be heard for 3 minutes per person. The applicant will be afforded 3-minute period for rebuttal or response. Planning commissioners will ask questions. Public comment will be closed. Then upon a motion, a second, and discussion, a vote will be taken. With that introduction, I will ask Commissioner Diggs to lead us in the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, we thank you for this day and for the many blessings. Ask you to help us strive to make wise decisions. Greater. Thankful for living in this country. Cover our men and women who take care of us all. The world. In your name we pray. Attention. Salute.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Good afternoon, Board. Powell? Here. Dix?
Here.
Green?
Present.
Joseph?
Here.
Kress? Here. Marino?
Here.
Willman?
Here.
Thrower? Wilds?
Here.
Dickerson? Rodriguez? Doughty?
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
The next item is approval of the minutes for the following meetings: April 8th, 2019, May 13th, 2019.
Second.
Motion has been made to approve and second for the minutes. All those in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign of aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Agenda item 2, public comment. If there is anyone who wishes to provide comments on items that are not on the agenda, please approach the podium one at a time and state your name and address. You will have 3 minutes. Now we're on agenda item number 3, Alafia River State Park Unit Management Plan. Presenter, Sean College.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Sean College with Planning Commission staff. This is the Alafia River State Park Unit Management Plan. It's an update to a management plan for the Alafia River State Park. It was submitted to us by the Florida Department of Environmental Protection with a request for a consistency determination with the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, and that is per chapters 97, 351 laws of Florida. Some background with regard, I'll give you some brief background and staff recommendation. Then I'll be introducing a representative from the Department of Environmental Protection who'll give you some more detail about the plan. This piece of property was acquired in 1996. It's a large piece of property. It's 7,717 acres. Historically, this property was a phosphate mine and is now a recreational park with mountain bike trails, and also this large area protects the water quality of the Alafia River. On the left side of your screen is an image showing the general location within Hillsborough County in the southeastern area of the county. On your right is a more zoomed in aerial of the property in question, which is the Alafia River State Park Management, or Alafia River State Park, that is. Management goals within the plan include protecting water quality and quantity, restore natural communities within the area, protect imperiled species, removing exotics, and improved public facilities for recreation. Considerations with regard to consistency between this management plan and Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, we're looking at things like conserving and improving natural areas. These are both goals of both the comprehensive plan and this management plan, as well as water quality and quantity are both consistent goals with regard to the two plans. Public access and public facilities are also congruent with regard to the management plan and the comprehensive plan. So with those considerations, staff would recommend that you find the management plan consistent with the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. At this time, with your permission, I'll turn it over to, we have Mr. Tyler Maldonado on the phone from the Department of Environmental Protection, and he'll be going over a brief expanded PowerPoint for you and be available for your questions.
Go ahead.
Okay, Tyler, are you with us? You might have to unmute yourself if you are with us. Okay, we're not hearing.
Hello, can anyone hear me?
There we go. We can hear you now, Tyler.
Yes, you can.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes, you can go ahead. Hello?
Tyler, are you hearing us?
Hello?
Hello?
I think I'm on mute.
Yeah,
Are you,
no. You should be able to hear us.
Tyler?
Yes, I think you guys are muted me.
Okay, we can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Perfect. I can't hear anything on my end.
Okay, I'll relay it. You can go ahead and do your presentation. I'll relay anything to you.
Okay, perfect. Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. My name's Tyler Maldonado. I'm with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection in the Division of Recreation and Parks, Office of Park Planning. I'm going to give a brief presentation on the Alafia River State Park Unit Management Plan update, and I'll be available for questions afterward. Can you go to the next slide, please?
Yep.
Okay. Just a little bit about our management planning process. Every state park is required to have a unit management plan by law, and they're supposed to be updated every 10 years. They will then, after they've been approved, they'd be the managing document for the property over a 10-year time horizon. What we do up here in Tallahassee is I coordinate with the central office staff as well as the district staff down in Southwest Florida, as well as the park manager and his staff, and we develop management goals and objectives. We draft the plan. We do an internal review within the Division of Recreation and Parks, and then we do a public process that includes a public meeting and an advisory group. For this park, we had public meetings on March 27th, and then we also had the advisory group meeting on March 28th. Afterwards, I received a bunch of comments from the public and different stakeholders. I went and revised the plan, and then I submitted it for review with the Acquisition and Restoration Council. That body should be hearing the plan for approval on the August agenda up here in Tallahassee. Next slide, please. So this is a little bit of the information that Sean already supplied. It was acquired by the state in 1996. It was then leased by the Board of Trustees to the Division of Recreation Parks in 1998. The total acreage is 7,700 acres. That is the current acreage. Back in 2017, there was about 1,200 acres that were amended to the park boundary, making it that 7,700. Some of the significant features, as Sean said, it's a former phosphate mine, so there's extensive habitat restoration efforts going on the property. There's also the south prong of the Alafia River that runs sort of bisecting the property. And given its historic use, the terrain is really well suited for mountain biking trails, and in fact, this park is one of the premier destinations in the state for mountain biking. We have people from all over the state and all over the country coming to this park to use the mountain biking trails. And then some of the more previous uses were equestrian, so we have a campground that's geared towards equestrian camping. The sites are big enough to accommodate equestrian trailers, and then also regular RVs can use those sites as well. Next slide. This is an attendance analysis for the park. It's showing 3 other parks in the general area, so Little Manatee River, Hillsborough River, and then also Lake Manatee. From left to right, it's the last 10 fiscal years, so you can kind of see for Hillsborough River, we've seen an uptick in attendance, but then you compare that to Hillsborough River, and it's about half the attendance that Hillsborough gets. The 5 parks you see there on the right are the top 5 most visited state parks in Southwest Florida. District 4, that district extends from up in Hernando County down to Collier County. It consists of about 36 parks, so you see the attendance there. Honeymoon Island is by far the most popular park. It's actually the most popular park in the state system. And then you see how Alafia River, the attendance there compares to some of the more popular parks in your part of the state. Next slide. Okay, so this is showing the natural resources and the land covers for the property itself. You can see the top 2 land covers are spoil area and invasive exotic monoculture. Those are altered land covers, and those are the type of areas on the property that we'd be looking to restore through that extensive restoration.
I don't know. You have his number?
Tyler, why don't you go ahead and see if I can use the phone? Tyler?
Yes.
Go ahead. Continue.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, try it one more time.
Can you hear me?
Can you hear him? Yes, they can hear you.
Okay. So what I was saying is, by far the property is dominated by altered land cover. So it's about 65% of the property is in some sort of altered state. So the main priority for this management plan would be to restore the habitat types to their desired future conditions. If you go to the next slide, I have a comparison of the 2 different maps that show the one on the left side is the existing conditions. The one on the right is in its desired future conditions. So if you see the different colored hatching on the left side of the map, that shows all of the different altered land cover types that we have at the property, and those would be the places where you'd see the most extensive habitat restoration efforts going on. So putting these maps side by side kind of shows the work that we'd be doing over the next 10 years. Just for a quick example, Music Flatwoods, we have about 850 acres, and the desired future condition for that habitat type would be almost 2,800 acres. So through exotic treatment, through prescribed fire management, those altered land covers will one day be in their desired future condition. And what I'd like to say here is that all of these restoration objectives in the management plan, they are meant to start the process, but they're not meant to be accomplished in 10 years. A lot of this work is going to take a lot longer than 10 years, but this is trying to move the needle in the right direction. The next slide. These are just a few of the different resource management objectives that we have at the property. On the left side, hydrology, imperiled species, and cultural resources. Those are something that we monitor on an annual basis, and there are some objectives that we would want to accomplish in those categories, but for the most part, the priority of the park will be natural community and exotic species restoration, so maintaining about 2,400 acres within the optimum fire return interval. We do have a grazing contract or a grazing agreement on the property, so we want to ensure that they're using the best management practices, and we will work to develop metrics so that we can gradually release those acreages from grazing. And then on top of that, there's a pretty extensive exotic species program, so we're looking to treat almost 700 acres per year. The last slide that I have for you today is the conceptual land use plan. This is in regards to recreation. So the first few things that I was talking about were more resource management based. This gets into the recreation plan for the park. And given that this is a 10-year management plan, these are intended to be options for the park manager to choose from in the event that he gets funding. These are the different things that he could try to accomplish. There's a lot on here. We don't expect probably a majority of these things to happen, but in the event that we get a good amount of funding, this gives us the flexibility to do these different type of projects. So the main goal within this plan would be to create one unified entrance. So right now we have 3 entrances off of County Road 39. So there's one in the northern portion of the property, there's one sort of in the middle, and then there's one down on Thatcher Road. So what we want to do is create one unified entrance through the main entrance of the property, which is that white line that you see sort of on the left side in the middle of the map. That would be the main priority, and then everything falls from there. Once we were able to create that unified entrance, then we could relocate the existing equestrian trailhead. We could develop a primitive equestrian campground. We redesigned the existing campground to try to facilitate more camping in that area, and then we'd be looking to do some more things around the south prong of the Alafia River over there by Thatcher Road. So that's going to be a new day use area with paddling and picnicking opportunities, and then also a cabin area for overnight accommodations. And with that, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions from commissioners?
I have 2 to relay. One was you indicated that it was very popular for mountain biking. Where exactly are the mountains out there? That's just a joke, Sean. Pass that on. Seriously, though, in the 10-year plan, 10-year time frame, you have you refer to it as the south prong of the Alafia River, and it's really just nothing but marshy wetlands. But it looks like it's been carved out on your 10-year plan, and I don't think you have any intention of doing that, but I thought I would just ask. Did you hear that?
Did you hear that, Tyler?
I can hear some of it. I can't hear through my phone. I can only hear sort of
Hey, Sean.
noise.
Sean. Oh, I'm sorry. You're Sean. Excuse me. Tyler, this is John Dix, and I was just curious. One of your One of your PowerPoint slides shows a 10-year time frame as far as the conceptual use, and it's got in there in the south prong of the Alafia River. I'm kind of familiar with the property out there, and the south prong is really, I mean, it's really just more super wetland. You can't really canoe or anything out there, but it looks like it looks almost like in the conceptual thing, y'all were kind of trying to excavate that and use that, you know, for waterways. And I don't think that's your plan, but I just was curious about that.
No, it's that on the conceptual land use plan that is showing more or less the floodplain or the wetland area of the south prong. We do have that bridge right there at Thatcher Road, and at times during the year it is navigable. And at this point in time, there is somewhat of an informal boat ramp. So what we would be looking to do is more so formalize that area so that in times of high water that it could actually be used for water access in some limited fashion.
Interesting. Thank you.
Commissioner Dowdy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Tyler. This is Commissioner Dowdy. I have, I guess it's more of a comment than a question, but there is a little bit of a question in there. I wish you luck in your implementation of treating the exotic plant species. If you've got hundreds and hundreds or thousands of acres of exotic species and you're only treating 700 a year. But I'm curious about the feral hog population. I know I do a lot of camping myself in a number of the state parks, and I know that the feral hogs can be a big nuisance. They are in a number of the parks that I spend time at, so I'm sure that they can impact your ability to convert the habitat around the area, so I'm hopeful that you have some plans to maintain a small or eliminate the feral hog species, though I don't think you'll be able to eliminate them. So if you could talk about the hog population, that'd be great.
Sure, yeah. So at this point in time, we have about 300 hogs that are on the property, so that number can fluctuate up and down, but last we inventoried it, we do have a considerable population. We have been at other parks in the area and a lot of parks that have that feral hog issue. We have been experimenting with new methods, so it's sort of trapping multiple hogs all at the same time as opposed to trying to eliminate them one by one. And then also whenever we do these type of things, we always try to have partnerships in place. So FWC as well as the U.S. Department of Agriculture supplying data and grant money and manpower. So whenever we try to do these things, we try to take a team approach to it. But yeah, you're right. There are a lot on the property. We will be doing the best that we can to address that issue. But you know, given the altered state of this property, a lot of these things are going to be 10, 20, 15 years in the making before we can actually get a handle on it. So we do the best that we can with the resources that we have, and this plan is trying to give us a lot of the objectives that we have are aspirational. So we know that sometimes we may fall short given funding levels and staffing levels, but they're meant to be aspirational. So there's something that we shoot for and that we can eventually get a handle of.
Any other comments from commissioners? Are you done?
That concludes our presentation. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Now we need a motion. Is there any comment from the public? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I would move that we find the proposal to be consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Second.
It's been moved to second that we receive this motion. All those in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Are there any oppositions? Thank you. The motion is carried.
Madam Chair, who seconded?
ready. We're moving now to action item 4, Port Tampa Bay permit number 19013. Mr. College.
Once again, Sean College, Planning Commission staff. There'll be less technology with this presentation. This is Port Tampa Bay permit number 19-013 for the Bahia Beach renourishment. This is a review for consistency with the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. This application was transmitted to us by Port Tampa Bay with a request for a consistency determination, and is per chapters 95-488 and 97-351 laws of Florida. The general location, this is commonly called the Bahia Beach area. It is in the south part of the county. That is the Little Manatee River, the mouth of the Little Manatee River you see on your screen now, and this area is just to the north of the mouth of the Little Manatee River. This is a zoomed in aerial of the project site. It is a soft natural shoreline on Tampa Bay. Existing conditions at this site, it is about 1,160 linear feet of natural shoreline. It has not been hardened. It has been heavily eroded due to Hurricane Irma. It's estimated approximately 35 to 40 feet of shoreline has been lost during the erosion event of the hurricane. And that is the subject of the permit. What is being proposed is that this beach be renourished with new sand material. It's estimated that it would apply about 1,034 cubic yards of material above the mean high water line and about 861 cubic yards of material below the mean high water line to restore this beach area. Considerations for consistency with the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, that this is an existing natural shoreline. It is not a hardened shoreline. It has been heavily eroded due to this hurricane event. There would be no impacts to natural resources associated with the renourishment, and it would allow for the continued use of this natural resource and recreational resource. And those considerations are reflected in the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan and in your packet. With that, staff would recommend that you issue the resolution in your packet, a resolution of consistency with the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, and that concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Is there any comment from the public? Comments from commissioners? Commissioner Green?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Sean, I have a question. This is a private beach, right?
This is
Private property, rather.
yes. The upland property is private, correct?
Okay.
And it is being, the applicant has submitted this application as a private application. The private ownership is performing and paying for the renourishment.
Okay, but it's submitted through the port.
Right. Whenever you do any kind of activities below the mean high water line, you're subject to sovereign submerged lands rules, and you have to get a permit from the port for that activity.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other comments from commissioners? All right. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve Port Tampa Bay permit number 19013.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you for the motion and second. All those in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign aye. Aye. Any oppositions? Motion is carried. Thank you. We'll now have a presentation on recent county plat studies from Public Works. John Patrick.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is John Patrick. I'm with Hillsborough County Public Works. Sorry, it's just... I'm here to thank you for the invitation to come before you guys to talk about our recent plat study. Almost a year back, we had come before you guys to talk about the plat studies, the framework, how we set up to do these studies. Some of you were here, some of you are new, so I would go back and tell you what the plat study is, just define what it is, and then look at two. We were going to bring forward two projects, 131st Avenue in the university area, and the second one was the Big Bend Road. Just as we put together this presentation, it was a long presentation of lot of material. So what we thought was we will present you the 131st Avenue in the in the university area, and then the next time around when we get a chance, we will bring back the Big Bend Road study as well before you. So what is a PLAT study? Traditionally, just to step back, traditionally how we do projects, how we deliver projects in public works is we create a capital improvement program, which is based on your comprehensive plan, your long-range transportation plan, and the public input. We create a capital improvement program. It's a series of intersection improvements or road widening or such projects. We are public works after all. So we create this program, and our engineers diligently work on these projects, do a PD&E study, construct, and deliver these projects. One of the questions keeps coming back over and over again: how does these corridors help the community? How can we leverage these corridors or these investments to create value for the community? So what we did was create a new approach. As planners, we like more studies. I don't know why we like it, but we do. So in this case, we did a framework called PLAT, Preliminary Land Use and Transportation Assessment. What it does is looks at transportation and land use together, understand the community, and create a infrastructure that is compatible with the community and provides some create value for the community. I'll show you how. So the intent is, this is the intent of as we started, this is the intent. These are all, for lack of a better term, these are all buzzwords, but this is actually what we are doing and we are trying to accomplish. So the community plans, we have several community plans, and each community plan says what their community wants it to be when it grows up. So each of these corridors are defined. Some corridors are not very specific, but some corridors goes into very good detail in the community plans. And we look at that. We need to be cognizant of the safety for all users. It doesn't matter where we build these roads or intersections, we need to be cognizant of that. So we look at the Vision Zero documents that we had, the MPO has generated. We look at that as well as a guidance for creating a safer design. It's not retrofitting corridors. It may be in some cases, like 131st, it's a retrofit. As we do those projects, we need to keep safety for all users in mind. All these corridors has a connection to the community. These corridors, as they pass through, it is not just about moving people, moving cars. It's about how they interact with the community. We need to make sure that we understand that and create infrastructure that helps the community to use this corridor in the way they looked at this as in their vision in the community plans. These are big. The next one is creating value. As we do public works projects, these are multi-million-dollar investments to the community. We need to make sure that we are leveraging these infrastructure improvements for economic development or development within the community that creates positive change in the community rather than impact them negatively. And then all these things, as planners, we like to dream a little bit. So we need to tie ourselves back to the economic reality of what we can and cannot do. So this PLAT process, as we look at this PLAT process, we look at the market reality of what can happen and create these infrastructure or design these infrastructure that will enhance the community. So this is the middle part between these arrows. As you can see on the left-hand side is the capital improvement program, and the right-hand side is the PD&E study, the engineering study. So in between is where we have this PLAT study. Basically, it has three components or three parts to it. First is existing conditions. Basically, we call it understanding the baseline factor. when these traffic studies are done, it's more of a static study. It is not dynamic. Where are people going and coming in real time, not in a model, a long-range transportation model? Where are they really going and coming? What is the purpose of the trips? To minutely understand those characteristics to really design these corridors. So that's what we did. We used big data to look at where people are going and coming, origins and destinations. What are the infrastructure existing in that community? What does it need more of? Where are the gaps that we need to fill in? We look at the access management, the frontage. Those are the regulatory environment that is there, are the requirements in those areas. What is the zoning district? All those things. That's existing conditions. Then we do what we're calling balancing development pattern and form. In this, we create a scenario of land uses, looking at what market can bear in these areas, and looking at and creating a balanced land use scenario in that area. So we put these together. We know what is the existing conditions, what people are using this corridor for. We know what's the land use and development pattern in that area. We put together these two together to create a solution that is improved infrastructure, that we call it as identify improved infrastructure. That infrastructure that provides a better growth scenario for this area. So it's all based on understanding the market and the travel pattern in that area. That is what we are trying to do in this PLAT process. So here is what, if you do it correctly, this is what the outcome of this we want it to be. Taking a corridor, we link the market, we link the modes, and we link the travel pattern to create an urban form. What do I mean by that? Here is a roadway project. It's an enhancement roadway projects. As we do this, we just not do this project as in isolation, but look at what is the possibility of that corridor that can be based on your community plan. This is in a very ideal scenario. This is way up almost pie in the sky. These kind of patterns rarely happen in corridors, but these are possibilities that can happen. These are options. If done correctly, we can do it. The project that we are going to show you, 131st Avenue, is an ideal condition for redevelopment. Every plan that we have looked at around 20 plans in this area. All point to a possibility for redevelopment and potential for redevelopment in that area. So I have here with me Matt Lewis, who is the project manager on 131st Avenue. He will walk you through the project, how we use this land use pattern, the land use assessment tool to come up with this framework, to come up with a scenario of transportation improvement.
Thank you, John Patrick. Matt Lewis. I'm with, I believe we're called Infrastructure and Growth Planning or Capital Facilities Planning. We just reorganized. I haven't really caught up with that memo yet. So, as JP had mentioned, this process looks at an area and says, okay, what is it going to be in the future? When this area grows up, when you add in the market, when you add in the community plans, when you add in the way people use that road, how is it going to evolve? Well, we started with a 2014 study conducted by the Planning Commission and one of their consultants that looked at mixed use and strip commercial areas. The reason we looked at this is because this thing identified 3 different patterns: compact urban, connected suburban, and modern suburban. Now, the way to think about these patterns is not in terms of the buildings, because when we do these studies, we're looking at the street network, and we're asking, if you want this to redevelop, why hasn't it redeveloped, or why is it redeveloping so well? So the buildings are reacting to the infrastructure improvement that we're making. So we're just looking at compact urban in terms of a very tight gridded network, whether or not that's square or cow paths that evolved into streets, kind of like Boston, where you don't know where you're at. is not the important thing. Is that there's a tight gridded network that people can use to walk around. Connected suburban, think of this as the neighborhoods that developed in the area post-World War II. You had the introduction of the automobile. It was not yet everywhere. And so you had a population that could drive, but usually needed to walk. And so the neighborhoods were a lot more walkable, but they still accounted for this new transportation device. And so what you had were really larger block sizes. The commercial parts of these areas were either up to the street or kind of a streetcar-like setback with parking in the front. But there was generally good connectivity from a pedestrian perspective from neighborhoods to commercial areas. And then if you think of a modern suburban area, think of an area where everything's developed in pods. You have a pod for the Best Buy and neighborhood Walmart. You have a pod for the townhomes. You have a pod for the residential area. These types of developments really rely on the arterial and collector network to move about. So when we look at 131st Avenue, first of all, the good thing about addressing this body is that you already know where it is. I don't have to get into that. But starting at the Nebraska and 131st Avenue intersection on the west side, the way this thing is set out is there's something that doesn't exist in that study, and that's industrial. And there's a reason that doesn't exist in that study is because they weren't studying that. But that land use on that edge is really industrial. As it moves to the east, you see the introduction of more of a connected suburban pattern on 131st Avenue. As you get towards 19th Street and then to 22nd Street, you see something that's evolving from that connected suburban pattern to a more of a compact urban pattern. And as you move towards the USF gates, what you have is the VA hospital, and you see something else that they hadn't studied in that, and that's an institutional campus style thing. Giant hospitals, universities, hard to classify unless they're really old. So as John Patrick mentioned, we looked at close to 24 plans in this. This is a smattering of the plans that we looked at. The UACDC Neighborhood Transformation Strategy was a great source of information. But generally what these things said is that they want a mixed-use environment connected by main streets, boulevards, and pedestrian links. It was looking for a compact urban development form to happen in the university area. Another common theme was pedestrian safety and crime. The built environment and does not really work well to ensure that people feel safe and don't get run over. So when we looked at the travel patterns, a few striking things that we found is that half the people that use this corridor intend to use this corridor. That means that you don't have people cutting through it, using it as a way to get to somewhere else. When you look at it as on a map, you can see that it doesn't really go anywhere, so that makes perfect sense. This is not a regional road, it's very much a local road. And then when we looked at the people using this corridor, 30% of the trips coming to this road are less than 2 miles in length. That means that those people that are currently using cars to come through this area could easily be taking that trip through public transportation, walking, or biking if the environment were able to support that. So all this points to we don't need a 4-lane road. What we need is a local road that supports multiple modes of transportation. So looking at the market, jobs housing balance affects travel patterns. What you have in the university area, if you look at the figure right here that I'm swirling around with a pointer on, every day the population in this area gets recycled. 20,000 people come there to work. The 11,000 people that live there go somewhere else to work. And only 949 people live and work in that area. So what looks like a pretty good jobs housing balance is actually almost a perfectly imperfect jobs housing balance in the area. So what is that pointing to, though? A couple things going on with the market in this area that we can take advantage of. One is the continued expansion of the VA hospital. They have approval for another 200 and something bed wing to go in. They have land to bring in more properties as they consolidate their operation on that area. And they're part of a larger medical district that includes Florida Hospital, Moffitt, all the USF area hospitals. And also the redevelopment of the current University Mall into the Uptown District. This will result in some number of square feet of new employment uses. What this all means is that there's a lot more jobs coming into this area, and that means that these new people might need some market rate housing. So what we're looking at really for the 131st area's uses is market rate housing and taking advantage of that new job growth. So recommendations area by area, starting in the 131st area in Nebraska intersection where Robbins Manufacturing is. What you're seeing there is an existing healthy industrial use. With the mall redevelopment a site of that size, it's not likely to be coming in for another redevelopment unless something major happens in the area. It'd take a big event for that thing to come in. So what we're looking at is having the future land use and the form-based code for the area be ready for that thing to come in to redevelop. 12 units per acre is probably not enough density to support the demand that this area could support. So future land use and coding opportunities for them, as well as an option for a cross-section that the PD&E will look at that really works well for both the existing industrial employment in the area, separating the bicycle and walking traffic from the truck traffic that's going to be going in and out of this site. Well, at the same time, having a cross-section that can evolve into more of a main street or more of a residential-friendly street as the area redevelops. Now, as we move towards the east, we're entering into the area that we're calling the neighborhood section. This is an area that we see as really has an opportunity to incorporate a lot more of that market rate housing. It would need a form-based code to bring those buildings to the street and relate them properly for the urban setting that's being asked for in the area. And we're also looking at the existing stormwater pond there and opportunities to turn that into an actual amenity instead of a big lake with a fence around it. And this will help really attract this people to the area better. So the cross-section here would be designed to discourage the flow of that truck traffic from the industrial area. So bringing those lanes from 11 feet wide to 10 feet wide, slowing that traffic down significantly and allowing cars and bicycles to share this road, as well as including the plantings and sidewalks necessary to support the residential section of this form-based code. Now, as we move down to the intersection of 22nd Street and 131st Avenue, what you're looking at here is the fulcrum between the mall redevelopment and the hospital district. So we're seeing this as an area that has serious potential to develop into, for lack of a better word, their downtown, their main street. So the cross-section we're providing to the PD&E would have a wider sidewalk to serve a higher pedestrian volume, continuing that 10-foot wide Sharrow, that low design speed. We're also introducing the idea of using a semi-public space between the right-of-way and the buildings. This allows things like sidewalk dining, kiosks, vendors to happen and really activate that space more effectively for our Main Street environment. And then as we reach the VA section, what you have in this area is one of the most intense pedestrian areas in unincorporated Hillsborough County. Basically, what happens is the people that work at the VA park across the street. So every time they have a shift change, there's a lot of people walking around. So what we're really focusing here on is pedestrian safety. One of the key intersections is the main entrance to the VA. Currently, it's configured with a long turn lane that goes north on Bruce B. Downs and 2 through lanes going into USF. The 2 through lanes are unnecessary. 1 through lane can handle the volume going to USF. So the option we're giving to the PD&E study is to take that long turn lane, turn it into 2 turn lanes, shorten it. By shortening it, it allows you to move the pedestrian crossing to an area where you only have to cross 1 street and provide a big island to protect the pedestrians midway from their job to their parking lot. And really, it's not necessarily a dangerous intersection. These are professional pedestrians. They don't get run over in this area. But it's just very uncomfortable. And this will really help improve that comfort for these people. So, and when you think about a complete street like 131st Avenue, it's not the street that you're really doing. What you're doing is you're threading together different districts. I just went through 4 districts that are being threaded together by this street. And in order to complete that district more effectively, we have some off-corridor recommendations, namely completing the sidewalk network to the north and south. That connects very well with the UACDC's priority sidewalk plans and their redevelopment of the park, whose name I forget, and Harvest Hope, thank you. Right now we have some university area redevelopment incentives that allow for redevelopment incentives for what are called, I wrote that down, catalyst projects. Now, for what you're seeing as far as the market here, allowing a residential project meeting a form-based code to be a catalyst project will go a long ways towards furthering the redevelopment in this area. And the bigger thing going on is, as you have this type of development desired along a street, things like stormwater and parking that we traditionally handle on a case-by-case basis really conflict with the form we're looking at. So regionalizing the stormwater system would be an effective way to encourage the form that all the plans are asking for. What that basically means is you take all of the stormwater you need to encourage that redevelopment, put it somewhere other than where you want that redevelopment to occur, hopefully on the bottom of a hill, and use that as both a functional feature, preventing flooding, as well as an amenity. It's a linear park, it's a network that provides bicycle and pedestrians a better way to get down south. And really all this stuff adds up to not only delivering a street that reacts to what the community and markets are looking for, but also helps to deliver the plans that are in the area more effectively as well. So the next step with this is we are going to start the PD&E at the end of the year, and we are available if you have any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions, commissioners? Commissioner Diggs?
No, I was, go ahead.
You,
Cody.
Lynn? Commissioner Powell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to just follow up on 2 things that I heard, and I don't fully understand how they'll actually work out, but you mentioned that for the trucks traveling through from the industrial portion into the residential, that simply by narrowing the streets from 11 feet to 10 feet, that was going to somehow deter them from, continuing to travel down into that section. And I don't really understand like the logic, behind that. If this is like their current, kind of like their behavior, how are you going to actually, change that behavior? To me, just thinking about it, it seems like it's going to make things a little more unsafe going from they're already accustomed to a wide road now to, a little bit more narrow road. especially for pedestrian safety. So could you?
Okay, yeah, by just narrowing the lane, they're not going to, it doesn't prevent people from going. But what we have is called a truck route plan. That is for Hillsborough County, and the trucks are supposed to be adhering to that corridors. So for example, if they want to go to the university, they could not take a shortcut on 131st and go the shortcut through the 131st corridor all the way to the university area, and vice versa. So what the trucks can do is, if they were to come to Robinson property for heavy industrial work they have there, they can take Nebraska, get to that, and get back on Nebraska or Bruceby down to go to anywhere else. So they're not supposed to go through that. That's enforcement. It's not by design, it's by enforcement. That is a tool that's been on the books for many years now, and it for most people adhere to that. It's not by design, so it's not just the design that prevents people from going.
Okay, and that was going to be my next question. Is it seems to me enforcement would be a better idea
Yes.
than just simply
Yes.
Narrowing of roads. Okay, thank you.
Thank
And then I have one other question, if you don't mind. You mentioned narrowing the roads, taking it from a 2-lane road into a 1-lane road going into USF. I have to do a lot of business over there, and definitely during the times where students are trying to get in for classes and things like that, the current structure for all the roads over there, when things are going to, especially letting out, but even leading up to that, it's a nightmare, like getting into there. So going from 2 lanes all of a sudden, which would allow for a little bit more traffic to get into there, now to 1, seems like that's going to create a bottleneck.
So it's one of the, we looked at a very high level traffic study to look at how many people are using that 2 through lanes to go straight, and how many people are going north, making that left turn, and there's 1 right turn. We're going to have the right turn as such. If you look at the turn lane that goes north, left turn that goes north, it's a very long left turn. It's for a reason it is such a long left turn, because there's a lot of people making that left going north. And we, based on traffic signal timing, we are not able to accommodate everybody moving in one cycle to flush that traffic out. So that's one. So the dual left turns will help in that way, clear out the traffic going northbound. We also looked at the number of people that's going through. If you're able to flush out the left turn faster, you give them more time on the through lane. So it's based on traffic study. That's an option for us to consider the PD&E study, where they will do detailed traffic analysis for the entire corridor and look at if it is feasible. But that's the most ideal situation. I hear you about traffic congestion. It's all over university area. It's a gridlock at some times of the day. Yes, we understand that. This is a recommendation. It's a concept that we are asking our engineers to look at.
Okay.
This will be an ideal situation.
Commissioner Green?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have a question about the width of the right-of-way along 131st Street. It is consistent 64 feet? Matt, is that?
Yes, generally speaking, the right-of-ways we're looking at are 64 feet, with the exception of, as you approach the VA hospital, the existing right-of-way gives us a lot more room to bring those turn movements through.
Okay. Okay. The reason I asked about the right-of-way width is because in your in several of your proposed right-of-way renderings, you start with a bike lane at the western end of 131st, then you lose it midway, and then you regain it closer you get towards Bruceby Downs. And is that because you're envisioning a certain type of development that you need on-street parking there?
Partially, yes. The on-street parking is does a lot more to calm the traffic for the type of development you're looking at in those sections. And also, the bike lane is far more effective separated when you have more dangerous traffic interacting with the bike lane. So that'll be the higher speed, higher volume traffics that you see at the VA section, as well as the truck traffic that you see entering and exiting the Robbins manufacturing facilities. As you get towards the more pedestrian and Main Street type of areas, what you have is slow-moving, small car traffic. And a bike lane is less effective as a share would be in that type of situation.
Okay. I think this is good to take a look at this street. I've often wondered about it myself, since I do spend quite a bit of time these days at the VA hospital, as well as USF. But I have to ask you about you also, in your renderings, are suggesting certain types of buildings, and I'm wondering where the land use aspect comes in, because 131st, it seems like for the most part, you have, as you're going west, let's say, you have some large parcels fronting on 131st Street, that is large frontage, that would lend themselves to larger apartment complexes, that is redeveloping some of the older existing ones. So I'm wondering if you're envisioning mostly, if not exclusively, residential development happening along 131st Street, because as you know, Fletcher, which is just 2 blocks away, is where most people in this neighborhood do walk and occasionally try to cross Fletcher Avenue. And of course, Fletcher has most of the commercial services that people who live in this neighborhood are trying to access. So I'm wondering if your study might not somehow bring those connections up to Fletcher into this study, because I'm thinking 131st Street, it can't function as a main street by itself. It can function as a heavily populated residential street, but it won't replace the commercial activity along Fletcher. So I think you have to sort of look at both sort of simultaneously to see how they work in tandem with each other in that respect. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's what we saw in the market, is the demand for the Main Street retail is going to be limited on the western portion of this street, especially with the large amounts of retail that are available and on the big roads surrounding this. You have the shopping centers on Fletcher, you still have the mall, and you still have the retail on Fowler. And it's just not a regional location. It's just not going to attract those big things. So what we're seeing is that would be far more likely to be a residential redevelopment than a mixed use or a retail redevelopment. That said, the area at 22nd and 131st Street, where you're intersecting the future mall redevelopment employment and long-term potential for VA employment, could be an area that could capture more of a neighborhood scale Main Street type of use.
Yeah. And you do have a few there now.
Right.
At least one corner I know is commercial. But I guess that's my point. You know, for the most part, people in this neighborhood are not moving east-west so much. They're moving north-south. People on foot, that is.
Right.
Okay. And you didn't highlight this one anchor retail facility, which is Walmart, which is just adjacent to the, as you well know, the bus transfer center. Okay. And again, that's also, you know, suggesting more north-south movement, crossing 131st as well as Fletcher for a good portion of its length. So
that's I'm smiling because it's one of the things we cut out for time. Is that we actually looked at 132nd Street and the evolution of that major commercial area there, and actually had a cross-section recommendation to allow better bicycle and pedestrian access to Walmart and the Starbucks. And as the VA hospital expands north, you're going to see the uses along that street evolve significantly. So the cross-section, we get ahead of that.
Now, of course, now we can talk about, speculate on the future, but if this corridor does develop with a lot more residential development, of course, and we know it's going to be a lot of student housing, okay, maybe more market rate apartments or whatever, maybe that will foster a lot more movement east-west towards the university, let's say. But for the time being, I'm looking at your diagram here. I see those lines of movement for the most part going north-south, so. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Diggs?
No, thank you. Your presentation was great, and I appreciate you doing this, and I'm glad it's being studied, but I also want to voice the comment. I feel like I'm tagging along with Commissioner Powell in calling me skeptical. You're doing things that I'm afraid if all this happens 10 years from now, we're going to see another presentation about all the problems in that area, because you know you're going from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, so that creates more congestion. And then you take the 2 lanes and you go from 11 feet to 10 feet, which gives people even less opportunity to make any slight errors in judgment when they're driving against each other, particularly as they're texting on their phone. And then beside those smaller lanes, you have unprotected bike lanes, which means that the people that are taking the biking are not going to be protected, because all you've really done by the graphics are kind of slapping some paint on the pavement and calling it a bike lane. And you know, my concern is that by doing all of that, and plus taking one of those lanes that used to be travel lanes now becomes a parking lane, anybody that wants to parallel park is going to stop the entire flow of the traffic in any direction in which it's headed. It's going to create more congestion than anything else. And the goal ought to be, at least to me, it ought to be to find out why 11,000 people are leaving every day and 20,000 people are coming every day, and find out what those 20,000 people that are coming, what kind of housing they want, so we can move them in there so we have less traffic needs to begin with. But I haven't heard anything about that. Maybe you've done something about that, but I haven't heard anything on that. And I fear that, you know, like Mr. Powell was talking about, you're going to create more congestion and more problems than what we really need down there.
So just to address one thing, which I think I probably led you to believe that it was a 4-lane road. Right now, it's not. It's a 2-lane road. What I was alluding to is that there's nothing in the information we've studied that would indicate this needs to be a 4-lane road. It's not handling regional traffic, it's handling local traffic. And so the improvements we're recommending are to really facilitate handling of local traffic more effectively.
On the second part of your question about what are we doing about those 20,000 people, there is another effort that's ongoing that was presented to the board last week, was looking at a CRA redevelopment kind of project in the university area. It's a innovation place area itself to address exactly those issues of housing and people coming in and out. That's exactly it. That's an effort that's ongoing.
Commissioner Marino?
Thank you. The thing that stood out to me off of the University Air Transfer Center right next to the VA, and at the other end, you have Nebraska Corridor, which is Metro Rapid, and even potentially maybe the CSX line. On this graphic here, you identify the green space, but it doesn't seem it's identifying the potential of transit-oriented development. Was there any consideration, and I'll try to word this so it applies to the other sites you're looking at. Has there been any consideration in your work to examine where can there either be sort of ready-made transit-oriented development or particular nodes where there could be a successful multi-use development similar to kind of what you showed on those first few slides, where you can move the development towards the road. You can have multi-level. How much have you looked at that sort of the getting the transit-oriented development there before the transit is there?
Okay, to start with the transit-oriented development question, that is really what the compact urban development pattern is TOD is a concept that's applied to a large site to say, how do you build compact urban into this large site so that the transportation, the buses, the trains, the pedestrians, and the land use can all work together to create an environment that's nice and happy for everybody. But this area is already fairly well parcelized. There are a few large sites that could develop into either that compact urban development form or a connected suburban, which is why we're recommending a form-based code for the area to ensure that the compact urban form is delivered. And there was a background study we looked at. Let's see if I can bring this. The Innovation District Master Plan Existing Conditions Analysis, along with something that's not on this slide, which is an Innovation District market study that identified a few key sites that have potential for long-term redevelopment. One of those was the Robbins Real Estate manufacturing site on the corner of Nebraska and 131st Avenue. That's why we have recommendations to allow that thing to redevelop in the future, but we can't say with any firm conviction that that's ripe to go with the mall redevelopment absorbing a lot of demand that's going to go into the area.
And I would just add, in terms of transit-oriented development, the comprehensive plan has an overlay already inherent in it that would add additional density and intensity on top of whatever land use category they're at, should we have a decision that there's going to be a fixed guideway transit station on the CSX or somewhere else in the area. I think the challenge is we haven't had that decision yet about where these lines will be. To have sort of that, without that fixed asset, it's very hard to get the investment to come to spur the redevelopment beyond sort of what's being described here.
Okay, can I get just
Yes.
one follow-up? So then, and I apologize for maybe going down this particular rabbit hole, but the property around the transfer center, I believe those two parking lots are for the VA, the ones that have like the solar panels on top.
Yes.
So has there been any engagement with the VA about the potential of turning those properties into, for example, housing for homeless veterans, or some sort of residential property turning that right now into some sort of residential property because it is publicly owned and there is that, for example, that particular need?
We did meet with the VA on several occasions about what their long-term plans are, and unfortunately they're not in a position to say they have one long-term plan for the area or another. They just haven't had the ability to build that master plan into their facilities planning. But they did relay that ultimately they would like to be able to concentrate as many of their geographically disparate facilities as possible into the area, which may or may not include that type of use.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Kress?
Thanks. So I just wanted to say thank you, and this is amazing. And I wondered, for your PLAT studies, is that going to apply to every project now, or are you just kind of hand selecting a few? Because I'm sure this takes a lot of time and energy.
Yes, it does. So, and a big bill after the end of the study too. So what we are trying to do, we are selecting only projects that add capacity. That's large-scale project, like Big Bend Road widening project. That has a big impact on those projects. If we are not doing these for intersection improvements, things like that, unless there is a flyover or something we have to say. So it's only for major capital projects that we are doing.
That's the trigger.
Yeah.
And then just to follow up on Commissioner Dick's concern about the safety of cyclists along the corridor, you know, you've seen in lots of other cities, they have the sidewalk at one height, the bike lane at another height, and then the road at another height. So that could be one, maybe somewhat inexpensive way to solve that.
Maybe we have to come back again. There is another initiative that we are doing, revamping our technical manual itself to include such cross sections that has not been implemented in Florida.
Just keeps getting better.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Green?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just one last point. John, you didn't mention anything about Robbins. Of course, we've been talking about that property for years now because they're, as I understand it, they've been sort of downsizing or moving their operations out. It's not as intensive as it used to be, but it is a major brownfields site. And I mean, as it could be a catalyst project, but it ain't gonna happen anytime soon.
And even if it is not a brownfield project, because of the massive mall redevelopment project, it sucks the market capacity to that area, leaving very little of non-residential possibility in that area. So the market that is really hot in that area is residential. There is built-up, pent-up demand for residential, especially student housing in that area. We need to figure out how we break that open. Fixed guide, somebody brought up fixed guideway transit. That is a possibility to break that open. But yes, there is environmental challenges in that property. We are aware of that.
This brings up some other issues too related to industrial redevelopment in the general USF area because, you know, of course, south of this, in the city of Tampa, the Tampa Industrial Park, you know, a lot of that property is likely to change. And then, so if we're going to be talking about future industry, light industry or, you know, tech-oriented industry, let's say, that could move into this area, I think it's going to be a challenge to sort of find proper locations for them where they can go. I mean, this could be a little niche location, let's say, for something like that. That Robbins property. I mean, it's a big site, has good access to the interstate, so that might be a consideration.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm glad we are having this conversation. This is exactly what PLAT studies is supposed to do. Think about when you do these transportation projects, have these conversations about land use. What is the best land use possibility? And I'm glad you guys are bringing up those conversation up. That is the next step of it. Here, it doesn't stop here with handing over this project to the PD&E study. Now there is an offshoot of land use. How do we set up land use around this for all this to happen? That is part of the next steps in this PLAT process.
Commissioner Wilma?
Yes, thank you. I'm one of the new commissioners that missed the original presentation, which I think was April 2018 when the framework for the PLAT studies was introduced. I went online to try to get more information ahead of time. I didn't see much other than the actual transcript from the Planning Commission meeting. So it might help to put something more out there for the public to know that this is being done. I don't know if it's already out there. I might have missed it, but so
we can do that definitely. Yes,
okay,
we can provide you the last presentation that we made, and as well as there is a 2-pager, 3-pager, some 2 or 3-pager information on what the process is that gives you a little more brief.
Yeah, I was wondering if the framework did that go through like a formal process to be adopted? Like, did the Board of County Commissioners decide on?
It has not been formally adopted by the BOC. It's not a resolution, but it has been heard by the board. Actually, they have heard this. They like the way we deal with transportation and land use. Yeah.
Okay. And is this the first study, the 131st Avenue PLAT? Was that the first study?
No, we had a test case before that was also presented at the previous last year, was on 42nd and 46th Street.
But is this a formal, so it looks like these might be formal recommendations. Will these be presented to the board? Will there be an opportunity for the public to review and provide input on this specific study?
We go, as part of this study itself, we go out, in this phase of it, the PLAT study, we go out to the board, to the public in terms of stakeholders. We get set of input from there. And the next step where public can provide input is the PD&E study itself, where they actually design these. These are concepts. This has to be engineered, and that's where the public can provide their input in the next phase.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Great presentation, JP, Matt. I have a question. We were talking about market-driven solutions, and there's a lot of data, talked about population data and real-time data, information on where people are coming from, how many people work there, how many people leave there to go to work. I'm assuming that information is census data that you're looking at? No? What was that information?
Census is part of the data. We also have, if you have a cell phone, you are being tracked. Mm-hmm. You know where they are going. Surprise, surprise, yeah, really. So you are so there are firms that collect this data from not only from your cell phone company, but also from Google and other places where they actually have tracks GPS, as well as Amazon and other apps that we use also gathers this data. And actually there are firms that concentrate on just gathering this information and providing us. It's called a Streetlight.
Right, right. So the area that you're gathering this data in is a very granular area, then you're saying, right? So the populations that we're speaking of are actually the populations that live along this corridor.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. My second question then was, and it's kind of in line with Commissioner Willman's question, is how do community-driven, because we've talked a lot about market-driven, and then in answer to the Commissioner's question, we kick back and say, well, at some point in the future, the community will get to give their ideas. Your presentation didn't talk about community-driven. We seem very market-driven and decided on what we're doing. How do we find that balance? Where does that balance come in?
Well, what we look at when we do these PLAT studies is the community plans themselves. Now, what we don't want to do through a PLAT study process is unzip and force the reconsideration of the community plan. That involves an entirely different set of community actors than really a land use and transportation assessment of a roadway is situated to do. You have to look at a larger, broader area than just the 1,500 feet that we're going to look at when we look at this road. So what we try to do is take all of these plans and condense them into community desires and test those with stakeholders immediately upon the roadway. And if we see a potential conflict with that plan and what we think could happen on this roadway, or if we see a chance to further something that's in those plans, like we did with the unified stormwater and this study, then we'll put those things forward as part of the next steps. And those next steps, fortunately we haven't had to do it, might be revisit the university area community plan, because this desire on the intersection of 22nd Street and 131st Avenue is not realistic. It can't be delivered, and you have to manage expectations with the community now. Or it might be, in order to better implement the plans that are made for this area, you need to change a coding strategy, which is what we did here, a form-based code. Now that process will involve a lot more formalized public input. It will be basically an amendment to the Land Development Code that requires a good deal of public participation on that particular aspect of implementing their community plan. So we don't try to create a situation where we upend plans that have been carefully constructed over time.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Our next presentation, FAR density tool demonstration from Jason, is this Krasnowski?
Yes, ma'am.
Ooh, and David Hay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jason Krasnowski with David Hay, Planning Commission staff. We are introducing the internal floor area ratio and density calculator app that has been in development for over a year. The application is an interactive map that is based on the property appraiser's parcel data and our own FAR and density calculations, which are updated quarterly. The map allows users to select parcels where they can view the living units and the buildings for those parcels, and they can also select groups of parcels and view the averages of the floor area ratio and the density for those properties. And Mr. Hay will demonstrate that in a minute. Other things with the app, users can overlay existing and future land uses and change the base maps to view the aerials for the area if they need. And with that, Mr. Hay.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. David Hay with your Planning Commission staff. I'm going to go back a little bit in time, like a year ago. Before this tool was developed, staff had to basically get out their calculator and go to the property appraiser's website and start looking at different parcels and adding them up and writing notes and everything. This has kind of made our life much easier when we're looking at certain sites. So I wanted to show you how, like on some of these sites that we would use this tool. So I'm going to use a commercial site. Everyone knows this one. This is the CVS at Swan and Howard, if I'm getting the folio right. It should get us down there. All right, so we'll say we need to, as staff, look at this particular corridor here. This is the CVS here. This is Howard. This is Swan. We'll turn on, let's see. So first we'll look at the existing land use. You could see Howard, it's all that light commercial. So we would look at, on this stretch, the floor area ratio. So we can also see what the land use is for that corridor. It looks like community mixed use 35. So we end up, we decide the section that we want to look at. So we would, this will select by rectangle, and we'll draw basically down. It selects all the parcels fronting on that Howard Avenue. It's 15 sites total. We'll go down into the statistics. And basically, there's your average floor area ratio for that whole segment. Not very high, it's 0.26, because a lot of that is one story, there's parking lots and things like that. So, but we can also look at, if there were units there, we could look at density. I'll give you a residential. The number of buildings, that there's 16 buildings on site within those parcels. We can look at the whole acreage. It consists of 7.54 acres. So it really gives us a lot of data that before we would have to spend a half an hour to an hour calculating out and documenting it. It's made our lives on the review side a lot easier. So if we zoom out, we'll go over here, I think, to clear this. We'll go over here. Where did I move? Here we go. We're looking at this right here. So this street, you can see, has some single-family attached, single-family detached, duplexes, whoops, and multifamily on it. So, and the land use is Res 35, it looks like. So I would end up turning the existing land use back on. I'm going to make sure that's cleared out. We're going to select again by rectangle. Oops. Clear that again. Grab all of them. Right, so we've selected that block. And so then we would go, since these are all residential, we would go under the density tool. And they're averaging that whole block, when you're analyzing that block, comes to a density of 31.92 units an acre. So that's how we're using it. It's been very helpful in our zoning reports. We now include a block analysis that before we didn't have a lot of time to do. So we now include that in our analysis as part of our information that we're providing to the City Council at their rezoning hearings. So I think that's about it. If you have any questions or if it's technical, Jason can.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Good.
Congratulations. Commissioner Green?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. This is great. This is good stuff. Melissa, this is the kind of innovation that I was sort of nagging you about for a while. I think this helps us understand what it is we're doing a lot better and makes, of course, staff jobs a lot easier. Jason, were you the only one that, were you the GIS guru who sort of did
Yes.
this? Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you very much. I can see a number of opportunities to go even further with this type of information. Let's say, as a lot of cities are evolving around the country, of course they're not getting any simpler. They're getting a lot more complex. And tools like this, digital tools, helps us to better understand, how they're evolving, how to plan for them, how to make good decisions about the futures, let's say. And I can see, hopefully maybe in another few years or so, maybe not that long, that this could be paired with a digital model of a portion of the city, and this tool will become even more powerful in terms of its usefulness, let's say.
Well, and I did want to comment, we are continuing, and Jason is mostly doing all this. He's continuously looking at ways to refine some of the calculations. Like right now, we're having difficulties with how the property appraiser sorts multi-story condo buildings, how they file it, causes a slight glitch. So we still need to do, when we deal with like something over in Channel District, we have to actually still do that by hand due to how each folio, they don't represent it like anything else. So we're trying to solve that issue. But we're also looking at, I think, net and gross.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Oh, really?
as another option.
Okay.
Of course, he gets to figure out how to do that. But so it's evolving over time, and it's helped us greatly so far. So
Now, will we have the ability to either download or save any of this, any layers from this in any way?
Yes, the statistics can be downloaded as a CSV if need be, so then it can be opened in Excel and used that way. And we're working to get the land uses downloadable.
Okay, but the image itself, it still can't be downloaded as a PDF or anything like that. It's just we can always copy it, but
Screenshot.
yeah,
This could be screenshot, yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chairman, and Melissa, this is not just for staff, this is available to public as well, right, a tool?
Well, it's sort of been in beta testing for a little while as we refine it. So it is, once we make some of these revisions, like the issue with the condos and stuff, we want it to be able to be easily utilized by the public before we release it to everyone. Theoretically, anyone can follow the link that was in your agenda packet and get to it, but we'll be publicizing it on our website once we work some of those kinks out.
I would certainly use that as a marketing tool to justify why the fees are being increased.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Just
Commissioner Kress?
Thank you.
Sure.
Just a quick comment. This seems like it's going to be really helpful, and when it does get released to the public, my only suggestion would be maybe you could have a key that show what all the different colors mean, because only you guys are going to know that off the top of your head.
There actually is.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Oh, there it is. Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
Fun playing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we're having a presentation status update, Ybor Vision 2020 by Mr. Collins.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jay Collins, Planning Commission staff. Staff is here today to provide for you an update to Ybor Vision 2020. This is an update of the 2 CRAs for Ybor City. This is just a status update. This is not a presentation that has recommendations for those CRA plans. The consultant or staff will be back when we actually do have the draft plan. This is simply a status update, primarily to provide you with information that has been collected, what has been shared with the public, and then to provide you guys with some of the reaction the public has had on some of that data that we've all been chewing on for these past couple of months. So just a little bit of background. The Ybor City Development Corporation, which is a division of the city of Tampa, came to the Planning Commission asking for technical assistance to update their CRA plans. The Planning Commission then sent out a bid to basically have a private consultant do that work. VHB was awarded that contract along with its sub-consultants, Open Workshop for Architecture, as well as Landwise Marketing. So the scope of services, basically this is kind of a timeline to show you where we've been and where we're going. The task 1 has been completed. That is the data collection. All those players involved from the previous slide presented something for that data collection. Identifying of stakeholders. This is important. These are basically our first door into Ybor City. And we use the YCDC for that, primarily their subcommittees. They have subcommittees on transportation, infrastructure, arts and culture, as well as using those subcommittees to open up other doors for us about some of the individuals as well as organizations within Ybor City who might own large property holdings or who have businesses in Ybor City, as well as some of the civic associations that operate in and around Ybor. Finally, we conducted a visioning workshop in May 15th, and I'm going to provide an abbreviated presentation of what the consultants did that evening for you all, and then show you some of the back and forth with the public on that. So the conditions assessment is ongoing. Basically, that's an outgrowth of task 1. That is to update and incorporate that data coming out of the first task, and the condition assessment. Basically, there's a couple of things that stand out here. Primarily a retail needs assessment, as well as a healthy community design assessment, and partially those sub-consultants are what are working within that. Public engagement is ongoing. Part of that public engagement we would like to tell you about, if you visit yborcity2020.com, we have a survey. That survey has been up for a little over a month now. That survey comes down on Friday. It is a survey that's pretty open-ended. It's asking you those questions of what is it that's special about Ybor, what are some of those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to Ybor City that you may see. And again, you don't have to be a property owner or a business owner, and you don't have to be somebody who works in Ybor City. Anybody can do this. Ybor City is everybody's neighborhood. It's a 24-hour neighborhood, just like we talk about downtown as being everybody's neighborhood. Also, some of the other things, there's been a big social media push, as well as some of the local events. The consultants were going out to the Sunday markets that they have over there, as well as some of the Italian festivals and some of the other festivals that they have in Ybor City. And finally, the fourth task is to actually finish the plan. And the plan is scheduled to be finished this fiscal year, so by September the 30th. And that will include full presentations to the YCDC, as well as this body, the Planning Commission, and City Council acting as the CRA, the Community Redevelopment Agency for the City of Tampa. So those stakeholder meetings, which went on for about 2 months, there were 6 or 7 of them with all those subcommittees as well as the full YCDC and a couple of them with other interested groups. Basically, they broke that out as some of the things that the staff and the consultants brought in, some of the information that was then specific to the CRA plans, as well as basically the feedback that we were getting from those subcommittee members. So those included some infrastructure and open space, mobility issues, land use and urban form, and then some of the specifics of that retail analysis as well as the healthy community design. So all of that information was basically shuffled into a deck, and then we went to the workshop. The workshop was May 15th. It was at the Children's Board in the evening. It was well attended. There were about 100 members of the public that attended, as well as 2 city council members for the city of Tampa, they being Councilman Citro as well as Councilman Goons. And basically, we had a conversation of what is it that they see as those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats in Ybor City going into the future. And so what I'm going to do now is just give you that overview of what the consultant did and then show you some of the things that came back from the public that evening. So growth and change. Growth and change is occurring everywhere in Hillsborough County, not just in one simple neighborhood in the city of Tampa or one simple neighborhood in the county. It's pretty much everywhere. So this is showing you a 2015 to a 2045. These are the 2045 population and employment estimates that are coming out of the long-range transportation plan right now in the MPO. And it is showing you something that maybe you knew, maybe you didn't know. Ybor City is a very strong area with employment here. You know, this is a small geographic area that we're talking about, but there are well over 10,000 employees in that area, and there are also a couple of thousand residences. And you can see the increases between 2015 and 2045 of both those employment and residential growth. So let's take a trip down 7th Avenue. 7th Avenue is the heart of Ybor City. It's pretty much where everything began and where everything ends for many people on a Friday or a Saturday night. It was interesting to learn that currently about 20% of the first floor on 7th Avenue is actually occupied by offices. Again, the market analysis came out. Those individuals, the retail analysis said that that's unique. We did not expect that. 14% being vacant, that's a little bit higher than what you normally see in a healthy environment. However, they saw that the 20% on the office, that obviously there's some easy absorption rates that will most likely occur there. And then you can also see the breakdown that you see of this mixed-use neighborhood with the restaurants that you have there, as well as some of the other goods serving the community. What you won't see are grocery stores, which is something that is actually shown here in the market analysis. You won't see CVS or a Walgreens, a drugstore, and you won't see some other things such as clothing stores and whatnot. So this is kind of that idea as Ybor City matures in the future, if that's the direction that it should go, there may be a market for those types of uses. Specifically, this was looking at 7th Avenue. It's not to say that this use would go into 7th Avenue, it's just looking at that square footage along the corridor. So we looked at 7th Avenue there for a second. Also, where are many of these people going to live in the future? Well, it's not that we're saying they're going to live in this area along Adamo, but the stakeholders really brought this to the forefront. They see that there's already been some substantial infill growth south of 6th Avenue. There's infill that is occurring to the north. There's a new apartment complex that has been built, basically abuts Interstate 4. There is also growth that will occur east of 22nd Street going towards 26th in that area. But this area along Adamo has always been something for the property owners and the business owners, as well as planners. Adamo. One of the things about Adamo is you'll notice here, the majority of that shading on that map is actually outside of CRA 1 and CRA 2. Again, this is specifically updating the CRA plans, but nothing exists in a vacuum. So obviously we're looking at what occurs outside of the boundary as well as what occurs inside of the boundary. One of the things that occurs outside of the boundary is you don't have the same zoning issue, the same height restrictions, everything else that goes on with the Barrio Latino, which actually controls some of the land development issues that you have within this historic neighborhood with some of the height issues they have, which we'll show you on the next slide. Basically, these are some of the transects of the zoning. You can squint at it if you like, or I can just simply tell you that you've got 35, 45, and 60 feet as the heights that you have in Ybor, basically through that YC1 through YC9 zoning districts. Well, just outside, going back to this area, There are some land uses, such as on the corner of this to the south and the west, such as Regional Mixed Use 100. Regional Mixed Use 100 is what you see throughout Ybor City, or excuse me, throughout Channel District. So basically there is that conversation that has occurred in the past, occurs now, and it will certainly occur in the future. What will happen to Adamo Drive? Will Adamo Drive become something that looks like the Channel District, or will it look something more that you see within Ybor City? Ybor currently, if you walk down 7th Avenue, basically the Italian Club is the monumental building. That's it. That's the height that you see. If you're taken aback and you're a little bit further afield, how about the Ybor Square sign on top of where I believe the Church of Scientology's building that they have? Go a little bit further afield, go to the south and go to the west. I believe it's a law firm that owns what used to be a brewery in its tower. Those are the 3 tallest buildings that you'll see in Ybor, and there's a reason why you don't see anything going over them. It's that historic nature of the district. So here's just a shot. This is a shot that you would have. I believe I'm at about 19th here, just a little bit north of Adamo, just to show that 45 and 60 on the massing and the scale of those buildings. It's not to say that this is a recommendation, it's just to put it in there. One of the things that you just guys had, you talked about FAR. Floor area ratio does not calculate parking structures. So those buildings are being shown as 4 stories, 5 stories, without parking structures, hitting the 45 and 60. So one of the things that we had that kind of surprised a lot of us, I'll get into that in a minute, actually, well, I'll tell you, is the parking issues that they have, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But first, some of the issues about healthy communities. Again, this was one of the assessments that was coming out of it, something that's a little bit different. The healthy assessments already, we talked a little bit about, it is considered a food desert, even though there are all of those restaurants there. Mainly because the only place that I can go and buy a banana is basically a 7-Eleven that's there, unless I'm there at the Sunday market. So there's not a lot of places that I can buy fresh fruits and vegetables, fresh meat, fresh bread in Ybor City. Some of that has been lost over the years. So that's one thing about a healthy community. What about the fact of, seems like it's a gridded area, seems like I should be able to walk all over the place. However, one of the things that we heard from everybody coming out is they starve for better connections into Channel District, going north of Interstate 4, going into downtown. They did not feel that those areas are safe, convenient, and secure for them to actually make their ways there. So this is from the CDC's, there's 500 cities that they looked at. It drills down into the census tracts, basically. In our area, you've got Tampa, Clearwater, St. Petersburg, and Lakeland, specifically, that made it into this. And so here, basically, what we're doing, if this is green or a light yellow, not too bad. Orange, red, it's bad. And basically what this is looking at are obesity and cholesterol. So you can see some issues that we can work on. Can we work on better connections within the district as well as outside of the district? And perhaps we would have a better result in the next time this is updated, and we could see our percentages of the population having the obesity lowering somewhat in these areas. Parking. Now this is, I jumped ahead of myself. Again, please don't look at that text on that. Don't squint at that. You'll lose your sight. It's bad. So what I wanted to tell you about, though, is that permits. Currently, this is showing you about 3,000 parking spaces in Ybor City. About 60% of those are actually monthly permits that they have in the 2 garages, some of the surface lots, as well as some of the residential areas. So it's one of those things for us not to lose sight as we continuously want to press, and rightfully so, for more frequent streetcar usage here, for more frequent bus usage here, for infrastructure for bicycle and pedestrians in this area. We don't need to forget about the fact that the automobile is still going to be a primary use for people to get in and out of Ybor City to work, to play, or to live there. And so there is definitely an issue with parking, with the delivery of parking spaces in Ybor City. And we talked a little bit about some of these areas, what makes these connections. And again, this is the consultant visualizing a variety of different things that may happen. Would we possibly one day have the ferry coming all the way up the channel if the port ends up developing its property right there? What if Virgin Trains doesn't use the Interstate 4 but actually use the CSX right-of-way? We do know that there will eventually be the cycle track going up New CO. So there's a lot of different opportunities for multimodal transportation in this area, as well as just further afield connections from one neighborhood to another. Infrastructure. This is pretty much the nuts and bolts of any CRA update that you have there. So you have to have that assessment of what is going on with those historic streets, the historic lighting that they have in Ybor City, and then what happens in the next phase of some of that mobility that we have. The scooters have arrived in Ybor. The scooters are all downtown here. That is one thing that's new. How will they actually play in Ybor? You're not supposed to have them on 7th Avenue. So, you know, there's all that needs to be a thought within Ybor City about how things such as that play out in the future for the infrastructure. So finally, that visioning workshop. So basically what I did is I just gave you an abbreviated presentation that the consultant did. The consultant then broke up that 100 people to go into the back of the room where there were stations that were set up to where everybody was asked the question, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's urban design, or in this case, miscellaneous, and saying, let's have that conversation. And staff was all around these tables, basically having conversations one-on-one or in group settings and jotting notes down. Then, after we did this for about half an hour, everybody was given stickers, and they then cycled back through, basically going, these are the things that I find important to me. It might have been that what you thought was important when you started the exercise wasn't important when you finished the exercise, or at least at the degree of importance that you might have thought with it. So these are in no particular order, but I just thought we would give you guys a couple of them. So it's those connections to other neighborhoods, the authentic and unique development. Obviously, that's along 7th Avenue, some of that height, the historic feel, the bike lanes throughout Ybor that they're looking for. Artist studios. Ybor has changed a lot over time, and so they're constantly looking for how they can either attract or reinvent or keep some of that artistic feel that they have in the district. The need for a grocery store, that was heard overwhelmingly. The restricted parking for local businesses is basically how can businesses get parking for their employees? It's basically one of those things where they're trying to say, I'd rather my employee be able to have a safe, convenient, this is where they park every time, not have to hunt and peck for parking in the district. More an extensive daily farmers market, that goes back to the issue of it being a food desert. Maintain of those independent businesses, they're fearful of the loss of them. The character of those businesses. The concerns about gentrification is something that you see throughout all of the neighborhoods for different reasons, whether it's the issue of how expensive it may be, or if it's the issue of it just doesn't feel like your neighborhood anymore because of what has come into it. Parks and green space. It's interesting, for as much as there is to do in Ybor City, the number of parks are pretty much one or two. There's just not a lot of green space that you have in Ybor City. And there's been some conversations about looking for linear spines, almost rights of way, that they might be able to convert a right of way into a green spine, if you will, in the area. The diversity, consideration of the immigrant history and who is welcome into the future, that is also coming right out of that gentrification. It's basically to say that some of the old-time residents are worried about what's going to happen. How is Ybor going to react when things are exploding in the Channel District, exploding in Sparkman Wharf in Water Street area, exploding into downtown, and some of them have an idea of what they are trying to keep in Ybor, and they're just not sure what's going to happen in the future. And then finally, one thing that we hadn't heard about, and again, this is outside of the district, but the boundaries going north of I-4. So that's not only just how can they make connections going into VM Ybor, but how can they actually benefit mutually from development that will occur north of Interstate 4, as well as the districts south of I-4. So what's next? Finish the stage of engagement. Basically, that was me telling you about this Friday. The survey comes down. Please do, if you have time, go to the website for the survey. We're going to continue refining this data. Well, the consultant's going to refine this data. We're going to react to what it is that they do. Updating the YCDC, that will be on June 25th. Again, all of these meetings are public meetings. Anybody may attend, and they are advertised. And updating the CRA, that is the City of Tampa City Council acting as the CRA on July 11th. And then finally, staff expects to see a draft plan in August. This concludes my presentation. I am available for any questions. Finally, Courtney Orr with the City of Tampa, the manager, she was here earlier, and she does apologize, but she unfortunately had to leave to another engagement. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Green?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Oops. I didn't do it. Thanks, Jay, for the update. This is good. When was the last Ybor vision done? Was it in the 80s?
So the last CRA2, there's two of them. CRA1 was 2005. CRA2 was 2010.
Okay, so they aren't.
So one of the things that this will hopefully do is merge. It'll keep them separate but equal by making sure that the CRAs, you have to do that for it, but the vision aspect of it and the strategic action plan, they would like that to be one document. Currently, it's two right now.
Okay, so will it address that area you showed in your plan view with, that's outside along Adamo, that's outside the historic district?
It can provide lip service to it, but it cannot provide TIF funds to it because it is outside of the CRA. So yes, it can make mention to the fact that whatever it is that comes out of that, if there's a recommendation from the consultant, but that's all it can be, is a recommendation, in which case would then drive the City of Tampa to need to do perhaps another planning study or something to that effect.
Okay. There was a lot of talk about retail. You mentioned, and I don't know, when I think about Ybor City, that's not a place where I think about retail. Now, entertainment, like your bar chart showed, the entertainment, the bars and restaurants, that's pretty much the driver here. So I'm wondering if there's a strategy, like an entertainment district strategy, let's say, as opposed to a sort of a retail plan of sorts that's going to be incorporated into this. Is that?
Specifically, the Landwise was brought on to do a retail assessment because, again, employees, businesses, as well as residents had voiced their concern about certain basic services that were not provided. As you said, entertainment. There are few areas in the City of Tampa that you can find as much entertainment as you can in Ybor City. But again, it's kind of difficult to get your dry cleaning done in Ybor City. And so, again, with the basically 12, 14,000 people that are there every day, either for work or living, they were looking for something more than just a sandwich at lunch or a martini after work. They were looking for something else.
So then that suggests that if they are looking at densities or density is going to be a part of this effort, and there are going to be some recommendations coming out of this study for either increasing density or keeping it the same or whatever, blending densities, let's say, it's going to have to address the issue of from a retail point of view, neighborhood serving retail. And more than likely, we're talking about tenant retail uses in that respect. So some of those densities will have to get up to, let's say, the scale of, well, I don't even speculate about, number of dwelling units per acre, but they have to, they would have to be large enough to support or to be able to incorporate those secondary uses in those buildings. I just don't see anybody building a standalone retail facility in Ybor City. And then that also relates to the parking issue that you that you brought up. Will there be a parking strategy as part of this as well?
Yeah, again, I don't want to speculate on what the recommendations from the consultant might be because we're not into that task yet. But I do like where you're going with the line of questions, and it is certainly something that we as staff do expect to see recommendations for those types of things. But again, I don't have draft recommendations right now that I can provide for you.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious about the direction in terms of where this is going. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell?
Thank you, Madam Chair. You mentioned that Ybor is like a food desert, and I was wondering with, Amazon and food delivery now being such a thing, if that type of service, if it's even provided, are there any, Instacart or Amazon if they, are delivering to those areas? And if so, is that still being considered to be a food desert? And has that component been thought of or looked at?
Yeah, from my understanding, food deserts still need to actually have a brick and mortar area for you to buy food because the food desert is primarily looking at the ability of socioeconomic groups to access fresh fruits and vegetables. And most of the time, Instacart and other things like that, it's not a lower socioeconomic background that is utilizing those services. So I like where the question is going because I think it's part of it, because that is an area that obviously has a lot of the tech advances, if you will. It shows up quickly. I mean, one example of that is there's actually Uber and Lyft signs in Ybor City of where you should go to pick up your Uber and Lyft ride. Again, my neighborhood doesn't have that. I don't know if your neighborhoods have that, but again, that is something that is showing exactly what you're saying, Commissioner, is that the 21st century moves very quickly through Ybor City, not in some of our other areas. But for the technical aspect of a food desert, what you're saying is not brought into account.
Commissioner.
Oh, sorry.
Commissioner Joseph, and then Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I got an easy one for you, Jay. What did you say the daily population numbers were for 7th?
So we don't have a daily population for 7th Avenue. What we do have is the number of people that are within CRA 1 and CRA 2. So that was well, it's gone now. But that was basically to say that there's just over 10,000 employees in the district and there's just over 2,000 residents in the district. Those residents are scheduled to double, as well as a couple thousand additional employees by 2045.
And those numbers are from the LRTP, right?
Yes, they are.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Just one last point, Jay. Now, there's a new Publix going in the Channel District. Would Ybor City still be considered a food desert, given the proximity to that?
And that's a great question. And I do not know the circle, if you will, how far off you need to have that. But that's one of the things that we get to bring back to the consultant to make sure that as they're crunching their data, they put that in there and we find out exactly what that is. I mean, you keep going further east, going out of Ybor, you don't find any grocery stores there either, but there are still people living and working, east of 26th.
Yeah, until you get all the way to 50th Street.
Yeah.
So, yeah, good. Thank you.
Any other questions, commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Now we'll have a briefing on the Hillsborough County Plan amendments. Not Miss Mills.
Yes,
A
I'm going to
substitute. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Krista Kelly, Planning Commission staff. I'm going to be presenting all three of the briefings today. Or I'm sorry, two of the briefings.
Okay.
There are two future land use map amendments. They're privately initiated. The first is CPA 1817. It's located on East Kirby Street, west of 50th Street in the East Lake Orient Park area. It's 4 acres in size. It's within the urban service area, and it is within the East Lake Orient Park Community Plan boundary. The area shows the site. It's heavily wooded. There is a residence on site. Kirby Street is located up here. It crosses another parcel to provide access to the site. It has frontage on the river. Just to give you an orientation, Fowler is to the north and Hillsborough Avenue is to the south. You can see the area is fairly developed with single-family homes and apartment complexes. The applicant's requesting a change from residential 6, as you can see the yellow area south of the river. There is quite a bit of residential 6 surrounding the site to the south. There's also residential 20 to the east and residential 35 to the west. The applicant's requesting residential 20 on this site. As you can see, the darker color brown. The impact of this change would be to increase the number of dwelling units by 56 units from 24 homes to 80. The FAR would increase from 0.25 to 0.75, and that would result in an increase of approximately 87,000 square feet of non-residential use if it were to meet locational criteria, which it does not. However, there is the opportunity for a waiver in some cases. This is a briefing, so it was brief, and I'm happy to answer any questions since we're going through all of these at once.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Are there any questions from commissioners?
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The next plan amendment is CPA 1901. It's located on Cain Road, north of Gun Highway. This is a 3.85 acre site within the urban service area, and it's located in the greater Carrollwood-Northdale community plan boundary. The site's outlined in the pink dotted line. It's north of Gun Highway. It fronts on Cain Road. The site's developed with a church and parishioner's home on site. Let's see. The applicant's requesting a change from residential 4, as is the area surrounding the site, all on the north side of Gun Highway. And they're requesting a change to residential 6. To bring out a nuance of this request, because it looks a little odd, a spot of residential 6 in the sea of residential 4. There is a home on site that's used as an ACLF, and they're intending to increase the number of beds, and the only avenue is to increase the density, thereby increasing the conversion in the number of beds for the ACLF. Okay, the impact of the change would be an additional 8 units from 15 to 23 homes. This FAR would remain the same, and as you can see, the square footage would be approximately 42,000 square feet for both land use categories. And again, that concludes that presentation, and again, any questions I'm happy to answer.
Are there any questions from commissioners?
Okay.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
And now we'll have our executive director's report. Mrs. Zornita.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Melissa Zornita, Executive Director. At your seat, you'll see my Executive Director's report. Couple main things I wanted to highlight. On June 5th, the Board of County Commissioners did adopt a resolution updating our fees as they relate to applications in the unincorporated county. They moved to increase the fees to 100% of cost, and that will be effective January 1st. That means a plan amendment that currently costs $1,000 will cost $8,663, and a text amendment will cost $11,543. Rezonings will go from, our review of rezonings will go from $150 to $499 for a standard zoning and $1,473 for a PD. So that's just a couple of samples. We will be advertising the change in fee schedule on our website as soon as we get the adopted resolution from the clerk's office, which we anticipate by early next week. So applicants will have a lot of notice about the change in fees.
And they're doing all at once? No phase in, no anything?
Correct. It's just for the unincorporated county. We will let all of the cities know about this and offer to do a similar study to what was done in the unincorporated area to determine the cost for similar reviews for each of the cities. I think each of the jurisdictions have varying processes, and so it warrants doing that type of study to see. The county, for example, has a zoning hearing master process, a number of things that we're involved in that the cities don't have. So we will be discussing that with the cities in the near future. Wanted to mention on July 22nd, there is just a public hearing for you all. We will have a very short at 5:30 briefing on the City of Tampa public plan amendments that are coming to you in August. So technically we'll have a regular meeting, but we're going to start it at 5:30 and it'll take about 10 minutes, and then we'll do the public hearing on the county amendments that you just heard. Hopefully you've seen around on social media about It's Time Hillsborough, or maybe you heard us on the radio. I don't know, but we've been getting out trying to promote taking this survey related to the long-range transportation plan. And so you each got a flyer about it. The survey's smack dab on the front of our website. You can't miss it. Please, everyone, take it, share it with your friends that you took it and how easy it is, hopefully, to take it. They do look for right. The MetroQuest, the folks who put together the survey, are looking for repeat IP addresses, things like that, and trying to flag things, but it's not a statistically significant scientific survey. We're just trying to get a lot of input from everyone. I wanted to mention that last week we had our Future Leaders in Planning program, that we had 20 students who participated this last year. They were really great, asked some super questions. It was really inspiring to see in the last day, about 5 or 6 of them raised their hands saying they might actually consider being a planner. So that was kind of cool. We also, Lynn had an article about the program published in the Florida Planning magazine that just came out last week as well. So we shared that with you. We have an info barbecue that's coming up on the 25th of this month about implicit bias. And this is a speaker who spoke recently at an affordable housing program that Pedro Parra attended, and he just thought he was a fantastic speaker to speak on this topic. And so we're really, this is something we're actually having videotaped by HTV, and we'll be asking all staff to view if they aren't able to see it in person. So last announcement, at your table you have water bottles, metal ones. This is the last month that we'll have plastic water bottles that we're providing. So we're giving you a water bottle, bring it filled. There's a water fill-up station out by the bathrooms. We're trying to be more sustainable, so use the reusable water bottle that we're giving you. All right. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Go ahead, Commissioner Green.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Melissa, I have one question.
Sure.
The presentation that David and Jason made, how long were they at this to get that tool to that point? I'm just.
Yeah, I think it's close to a year that we've been at it. David had been asking for something like this for a little while, and I feel like it's the last 6 months that we've really gotten going with it, but it's been a little while in coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like I've said before, I think that's really great that they were able to develop this. It's going to breathe a fresh, a whole new light on what it is we do here, both in the public sector and in the private sector. When they're able to use this, the general public is able to use this as well.
Absolutely. We've had a couple of folks who saw the agenda item and who've gotten a hold of it and really like it too. So
really
we're
kudos to the
excited.
staff for
Thank
that.
you.
Good.
They're a great team to make it all happen.
Commissioner Marina?
I just want to add thanks to Melissa, and then also Lisa Silva is coming to present at my neighborhood association on the It's Time Tampa Bay in a few weeks. So I'm personally excited because a lot of the folks in our neighborhood have questions about transportation stuff. So it's excited that they're gonna talk to the people who get it done.
Excellent. And if you have a group like that who might be interested in getting a presentation, please let us know.
Commissioner Diggs?
Great job, Melissa. We have a public hearing in 7 minutes, is that right?
Yes, about
Okay,
that.
thanks.
Maybe a little bit more.
Thank you. All right. Do we have any announcements? Committee reports? I have one reminder. You should have a flyer at your desk about the awards and design, the Designs Awards, excuse me. But there's an early bird special on the inside. It's like a sale. Thursday, August the 1st, 5 o'clock, $125 entry fee. All entries are due by August 26th at 5 o'clock, though. Don't forget to place the date on your calendar so that we'll see you all there. Any other announcements? Meeting is adjourned.
Is your local business or organization looking to give back to the community? Help keep our roads clean by joining the Adopt a Road program administered by Keep Tampa Bay Beautiful. Keeping our roads clean is a great way for team building as well as exposure for your business. Select the road your business wants to adopt and dispatch a team to remove litter and debris. Participants will receive 2 signs showing their organization's name as well as safety equipment and instructions for cleaning roads. You can help keep Tampa Bay beautiful by adopting your own road today. To learn more, visit hcflgov.net/cleanhc.
Tampa Bay is like no place else.
Wait, you can't recycle the bag. You have to throw it away.
Proper recycling keeps it that way for everyone. Bags tangle in machinery and can bring sorting efforts to a halt.
No bags.
Trash the bags and keep our recycling program moving forward.
No, Mom, look, no plastic bags.
Do your part to keep our recycling bag-free. Trash the tanglers or return them to participating retailers. For more information, visit tampabayrecycles.org.
Flossing in the morning is a really great way to keep your teeth healthy and start the day. But when you're through, here's what you do. Throw it in the trash, don't flush it. There's a problem lots of people don't know, called sanitary sewer overflow. A condition buried deep in the ground, inside a pipe where bad clouds are found. It's a problem we can all help solve, so throw it in the trash, don't flush it. Baby wipes, bandages, cotton pads, paper towels, dental floss, clog up bad. Medicines, kitty litter, cotton swabs, hair. Throw them in the trash, don't flush it. It just takes a second to do the right thing, so toss it and let's keep our pipes clean. Throw it in the trash, don't flush it. If it's not toilet paper, don't flush it. Even if it says you can, don't flush it. If you're having any doubts, don't flush it. One more time, don't flush it.
This is Dave. Dave doesn't know his home's flood zone and was not able to heed flood warnings. Dave and his home are soaked. This is Noah. Noah is an informed citizen. He was warned in advance about potential flooding in his area. Noah took precautions. Noah is dry.
And I saved the animals too.
Good job, Noah. When it comes to flood warnings, be like Noah, not like Dave. For more information, visit hcfl.gov.net. Be safe, be informed, know your flood zone.
Oh man, here comes Arnie again. Check this out. What's up, Arnie? What are you doing? You made a mess in my hallway.
You don't need superpowers to be a hero. Help make Hillsborough.
So let's say that Tim here was returning to his vehicle only to find it missing. He may think it was either stolen or towed. Let's not worry too much, Tim. Hillsborough County wants you to know the rules and regulations should you find yourself stuck in this unfortunate situation. Here are a few rules and tips you should know. Rule number 1, permission to tow. Towing services need permission to tow from private property and must post signs with telephone numbers saying that the trespassing vehicles will be removed. If your vehicle is missing, look for a sign and call the number. Rule number 2, communication. As soon as your vehicle is delivered to the local towing facility, towing services must notify local law enforcement within a 30-minute time frame, and they must return calls from vehicle owners within 1 hour. Helpful tip number 1. Law enforcement can help motorists determine if their vehicle has been towed. If you don't see a posted sign, call the authorities on the non-emergency line. Rule number 3, retrieving your vehicle during a tow. Most people are unaware that you can still retrieve your vehicle while connected to the tow truck. For a drop fee of no more than half the towing rate, the tow truck operator must release the vehicle to its owner. When it comes to payment, tow truck drivers must accept the following: debit, cash, cashier's check, or money order. Rule number 4, personal property. If the owner is unable to pay the drop fee and their vehicle is in the hands of the towing company, owners still have the right to retrieve personal property from their vehicle. Helpful tip number 2. Having a registration and title in your name will make it easier to recover your vehicle. tow companies will not hand over the vehicle if you are not the registered owner, unless you have an original notarized affidavit signed by the registered vehicle owner. Remember, Hillsborough County is here to help you. For complete, detailed information on towing rules and regulations, please visit us at hcflgov.net/consumer protection or give us a call at 813-635-8316.
Is your local business or organization looking to give back to the community? Help keep our roads clean by joining the Adopt a Road program administered by Keep Tampa Bay Beautiful. Keeping our roads clean is a great way for team building as well as exposure for your business. Select the road your business wants to adopt and dispatch a team to remove litter and debris. Participants will receive 2 signs showing their organization's name as well as safety equipment and instructions for cleaning roads. You can help keep Tampa Bay beautiful by adopting your own road today. To learn more, visit hcflgov.net.
Flossing in the morning is a really great way to keep your teeth healthy and start the day. But when you're through, here's what you do. Throw it in the trash, don't flush it. There's a problem lots of people don't know, called sanitary sewer overflow. A condition buried deep in the ground, inside of pipes where bad clogs are found. It's a problem we can all help solve, so throw it in the trash, don't flush it. Baby wipes, bandages, cotton pads, paper towels, dental floss, clog up bad. Medicines, kitty litter, cotton swabs, hair. Throw them in the trash, don't flush it. It just takes a second to do the right thing, so toss it and let's keep our pipes clean. Throw it in the trash, don't flush it. If it's not toilet paper, don't flush it. Even if it says you can, don't flush it. If you're having any doubts, don't flush it. One more time, don't flush it.
Tampa Bay is like no place else.
Wait, you can't recycle the bag. You have to throw it away.
Proper recycling keeps it that way for everyone. Bags tangle in machinery and can bring sorting efforts.
Welcome to a meeting of your Planning Commission, the official local planning agency for the cities of Tampa, Temple Terrace, Plant City, and unincorporated Hillsborough County. The Planning Commission provides innovative leadership and long-range vision that contributes to the creation of a thriving, prosperous community that offers opportunity, fairness, and choice in how we live, move, learn, work, and play. For more information about the Planning Commission, please call 813-272-5940. Follow us on social media or visit our website at planhillsborough.org.
Welcome to the June 10th, 2019 public hearing of the Planning Commission on the Tampa Terrace Comprehensive Plan amendments. We thank you for attending this meeting. Your comments and participation is encouraged. If you will, please sign the register at the rear of the room and turn off any devices that may be a distraction. If you wish to address the Commission on a specific amendment, we ask that you please complete the appropriate public comment sheet, sign-in sheet that's in the rear of the room. When addressing the Commission, please begin with your name, address, and speak directly in the microphone. For those of you who are not familiar with our process, the meeting will be conducted as follows. The agenda item will be introduced. Staff will give their presentation with a 15-minute time limit. The applicant will be given the opportunity to make a presentation with a 15-minute time limit. Following presentations, members of the public may address the Planning Commission when recognized by the chairman. Public comment will be heard for 3 minutes per person. The applicant will be afforded a 3-minute period for rebuttal or response. Planning commissioners will then ask questions. Public comment will be closed. Then upon a motion, a second, and a discussion vote will be taken. Roll call, please.
Good evening. Powell? Here. Dix? Here. Green? Present. Joseph? Here. Kress? Here. Marino? Here. Willman? Here. Thrower? Wilds?
Here.
Dickerson?
Here.
Rodriguez? Dowdy? Here. Thank you. You have a quorum.
We have the first City of Temple Terrace 19-01 map amendment. Mr. Mark Hudson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mark Hudson, Planning Commission staff. Our staff has been processing one plan amendment for the City of Temple Terrace this cycle. As already noted by the chairperson, it's TTCPA 1901. This slide shows you the general location of the plan amendment site. It's only a couple blocks from Temple Terrace City Hall on North 52nd Street, only a quarter mile south of Fowler Avenue. 52nd Street has the unusual attribute of being the jurisdictional boundary between the City of Temple Terrace and the City of Tampa. This arrow shows you a little bit closer in of exactly how the properties of this plan amendment have currently been developed, and those of the surrounding area. The plan amendment area is surrounded by the dashed lavender line. On the north parcel, it's two parcels. On the north parcel is 14 units of multifamily housing, and on the south parcel is vacant. To the north of this plan amendment site has been developed with a commercial use, currently a public supermarket. To the east and south in Temple Terrace are small professional offices. And across the street to the west in the City of Tampa are two single-family detached homes and an apartment complex. By way of a little bit of background about this plan amendment, it was privately initiated and is small scale, coming in at just 1.72 acres. The applicant has requested to go from office institutional to residential 18, primarily to develop the property out with multifamily uses with a small office. I've taken some photos of the area to give you a little bit of a context of how the area currently looks. This is the parcel looking east that is part of the plan amendment site, that is of the two parcels, the one to the south. This is the parcel to the north. It has the 14 multifamily units on it. As part of this application, the applicant is proposing to update these units and add additional units on the vacant parcel. This is 52nd Street looking north. You can see the character of the roadway. In particular, I just point out that on the Temple Terrace side, there are some pedestrian amenities, including the sidewalk as you see here. In the City of Tampa, there's two single-family detached homes, and this is across 52nd Street to the west, as I noted earlier. When you look at the future land use map, which I'll show in a moment, this in the City of Tampa has a land use designation of R35 in the county. This is the apartment complex in the City of Tampa, again across 52nd Street from the plan amendment site in Tampa, and this has a R50 land use in the City of Tampa. And I noticed that within Temple Terrace to the south and to the east are professional offices, and this gives you an idea of how those offices look that are adjacent to the plan amendment site. This shows you the close context of this site to the commercial development, and particularly the public supermarket. This area is developed with pedestrian amenities. However, you can see from the slide, the current residents have found a shorter path. This Publix is actually going to go under extensive renovations, and Temple Terrace staff has been working with the Publix, and it is my understanding that this path is actually going to be improved to a sidewalk as part of that redevelopment of that Publix for these residents and other residents on 52nd Street. This is the future land use map as it stands today. You can see the crimson color of the office institutional, not only of this plan amendment site, but also to the east and to the south. To the north, again, is the commercial area that is Publix. And to the west is the brown and the darker brown of the R35 and the R50 that is in the City of Tampa. And this shows you, if this plan amendment was approved, how that land use map would change, more similar to the color palette that currently is in the City of Tampa. What are the potential impacts if this was approved? It would increase the potential dwelling units from 15 units up to 30. There is also, it meets the locational for the bonus intensity zone overlay. And there's about a dozen or so development standards that if they comply with, they can get a 25% bonus on top of that, which would bring the dwelling units up to 38. It's my understanding that the applicant does hope to work through that process for some additional units. You can see that the commercial, the office institutional uses and the neighborhood commercial uses actually go down based on this from 37,000 square feet down to 26. So there's an increased potential for residential development, and correspondingly there's a lowering amount of the allowable square footage for a neighborhood office commercial. Our staff did review this per the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan. The full policies are in your packet, but in particular I would note that we compared this with the future land use policies, those dealing with neighborhood conservation, community development, multimodal corridors and major activity centers, and particularly it's close in direct proximity to Fowler Avenue, which this type of higher density residential use is encouraged in that activity area. Also in compliance with growth management, citywide redevelopment strategies, the provision of public facilities and housing. And our staff did feel that it was compatible with the surrounding areas and also within the vision established by Temple Terrace City Council for this area of Temple Terrace. We are here today to garner your recommendation to transmit to Temple Terrace City Council. We have not established the hearing date yet for Temple Terrace City Council to hear this. The applicant is working on his corresponding plan development, rezoning, and site plan, and its city staff's hope that both of these documents will be ready to be reviewed by the City Council in unison. Of course, once that date has been identified, it will be duly advertised with signage and legal advertisement in the paper. With that, our staff, the Planning Commission, recommends that TTCPA 1901 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 Temple Terrace Comprehensive Plan and afford this recommendation to Temple Terrace City Council. I would note that the applicant is here and also Temple Terrace staff is here to answer any questions that I'm unable to answer.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak? Yes. Please state your name and address.
Ybor Ivanov, 1280 Wildwood Lakes. We do recommend concur with staff's recommendations, and I'm just here for any questions you guys may have.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from commissioners? Oh, excuse me, public comment first. Okay, commissioners? No questions? Okay, we can ask for a motion now.
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Powell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like to make a motion that we find TTCPA 19-01 to be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 Comprehensive Plan and forwarded on to Temple Terrace City Council.
Second. So discussion? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign aye. Aye. Are there any opposers? Thank you. The motion is carried. That closes the public hearing for Temple Terrace. And I'm coming right up. Welcome to the June 10th, 2019 public hearing of the Planning Commission on Plant City Comprehensive Plan amendments. We thank you for attending this meeting. Your comments and participation is encouraged. If you will, please sign the register at the rear of the room and turn off any devices that may be a distraction. If you wish to address the Commission on a specific amendment, we ask that you please complete the appropriate public comment sign-in sheet at the rear of the room. When addressing the Commission, please begin with your name, address, and speak directly into the microphone. For those of you who are not familiar with our process, the meeting will be conducted as follows. The agenda item will be introduced. Staff will give their presentation with a 15-minute time limit. The applicant will be given the opportunity to make a presentation with a 15-minute time limit. Following presentations, members of the public may ask the Planning Commission when recognized by the chairman. Public comment will be heard for 3 minutes per person. The applicant will be afforded a 3-minute period for rebuttal or response. Planning commissioners will then ask questions. Public comment will be closed. Then upon a motion, a second, and discussion for a vote will be taken. Roll call, please.
Good evening. Powell. Here. Dix. Here. Green. Present. Joseph. Here. Kress. Here. Marino. Here. Willman. Here. Thrower. Wilds.
Here.
Dickerson.
Here.
Rodriguez. Dowdy. Here. Thank you. You have a quorum.
Future land use map amendment. Mr. Hudson.
Again, Mark Hudson, Planning Commission staff. We have processed 2 plan amendments for the City of Plant City this cycle. The first one is PC CPA 1807. Both these plan amendments have a lot of attributes in common, and you'll see that as I go through my presentations. This first one is, as you can see from the vision map of Plant City, this is located in the northeastern portion of the municipality. It's north and south of East Newsom Road, east of Paul Buckman Highway, south of Williams Road, and west of North Wilder Road. Moving in a little bit with this aerial shows you the actual plan amendment area that's affected by this application, surrounded by the dashed lavender line. To give you a little bit of idea, the East Newsom Road is the road that partially bisects this plan amendment site that comes in from North Wilder Road. It's about 107 acres, which I'll show a slide of that in a moment. It's an active agricultural uses. To the north, east, to the northwest, south, and partially to the east, it is already surrounded by the municipal boundaries of Plant City. This is a pending annexation, voluntary annexation. There's about a 1,400 linear strip of land that will remain in unincorporated county that it does abut to it up on the northeastern portion of the site. And I'll see if I can show you that with the cursor. It's this area right here. By way of a little bit of background of this site, in this plan amendment, it was privately initiated. There is a voluntary annexation is going through the process with their staff and city commission. It is a regular scale plan amendment coming in, as I already noted, over 107 acres. Currently it has a Hillsborough County Residential 1 land use, and the applicant is asking for Plant City Residential 6. The area that surrounds this, for the most part, as I noted earlier, and you'll see on future slides, is a development called North Park Isles. And both this plan amendment and the next plan amendment, it is the applicant's desire to bring this land in and to augment the land area that already is part of that proposed development in Plant City. To give you a little idea of how the site looks like today, as I mentioned, it is in active agricultural uses, and this is looking south from East Newsom Road. And this is looking north. And this is looking west from the terminus of East Newsom Road. And this is looking east on that road that I previously noted as the way to garner access to the site. And looking west, and this is leading into the plan amendment site. And this is about that 1,400-foot area that abuts the site that will remain in unincorporated county. These are those half dozen or so homes that their backyards back up onto the site. I will note that everyone within 250 feet of the plan amendment site was notified by direct mailing, and also, of course, this meeting was advertised on our website. I did not receive any calls from any citizens pertaining to this particular amendment. This shows you one of the half dozen or so homes that will remain and abut the site. This is the future land use map as it stands today. You can see the light yellow and dark yellow in Plant City, which is the residential 4 and the residential 6, and the light green color of the residential 1 in unincorporated county. And again, it stands a little bit more striking on this map than the aerial of how this actually to the northwest, south, and partially to the east, lands are already in Plant City, and this is annexing in to complete that grid. And this shows you the change, if approved by Plant City City Commission, to the darker yellow color of residential 6, which allows 6 dwelling units per acre. What is the potential maximum build-out in intensity based on this application? Currently, you could build 107 dwelling units in the county. And bringing this in Plant City and garnering this land use, if approved by Plant City City Commission, it will go up to 645. In either instance, it does not meet locational criteria for the county nor Plant City, so non-residential uses would not be entertained. Our staff did review this by the Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan. In particular, we looked at neighborhood conservation, residential development, enhanced hometown charm, their policies concerning annexation, the protection of natural environment, growth management, both for general development and redevelopment strategies, the provision of public facilities, which are being upgraded along Sam Allen Road in anticipation of this development, and agricultural compatibility. Also, we felt it's compatible with the other areas, particularly those obviously that are going to be in the controlled PD development site plan for North Park Isles, and also by the code of Plant City, which will require buffering between this development and those areas that remain in unincorporated county. Give you a little idea of the timeline. We're here to seek your recommendation today. This will be presented basically in this form on Wednesday, June 26th at 8:30 in the morning at City Hall to garner their planning board's recommendation. And the City Commission's transmittal hearing is scheduled for July 22nd. We anticipate this coming back in front of the City Commission more than likely in the month of September if this schedule is maintained. And with that, based on our analysis, Planning Commission staff recommends that PCCPA 1807 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan and afford this recommendation to the Plant City Commission. I would also note that the applicant's agent is here if you have any questions of them. And the Chairman, I would just like to note that this is the conclusion of my presentation and stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Would the applicant like to speak?
Good evening. Truett Gardner, 400 North Ashley Drive, Gardner Brewer Law Firm. And Mark has done a phenomenal job in his presentation. We've worked closely with Planning Commission staff as well as the Plant City officials, and excited about this. This is really just the expansion of North Park Isles. And so we're here to answer any questions. I've got Steve Luce with Eisenhower Property Group, as well as Cynthia Spidell with King. So here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Public comment? Planning Commissioners, are there any questions, comments? I'll start. Go ahead.
Sorry. Amber Dickerson with Hillsborough County Schools. We just wanted to go on record stating that there may be future capacity issues in this area, so we just wanted the applicant to know that.
And our staff did advise the applicant of that, and we've had some joint meetings with Plant City staff as well. So I think everyone's aware that there are issues dealing with school capacity, particularly I believe for high school and elementary. And when this development comes online and they go through that process, they'll have to comply with their concurrency process that's articulated in Plant City's comprehensive plan.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Green?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mark, I just had one question. What's the larger community? You said this is North
Park Isles.
Isles.
There's already a development that has been approved in Plant City. They're working through the engineering right now, particularly dealing with stormwater and public utilities and that type of aspects of the development, platting the property. Currently, it's approved for just over 1,300 units. This plan amendment would bring another 107 acres into this potential development, and the plan amendment that you're going to hear in a few minutes would bring another 128 acres into it.
Can you go back to your slide, the map that I think it was the future land use map? proposed future land
This
use.
one here?
Okay, you're right. Okay, so.
You want me to show you where North Park Isles is?
Right.
If you follow my cursor, can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Basically, North Park Isles is all this area in here,
Mm-hmm.
all this area in here, all down here, and all up here.
Okay, all right.
So it's basically almost completely surrounds this area except for that 1,400 linear feet of that development along Walter Loop Road.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Public comments will be closed, and I'll entertain a motion at this time.
Madam Chairman.
Yes.
Madam Chairman, I would move that we find Plant City Plan Amendment PCCPA 1807 consistent with the Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan, and then forward this to the Plant City Commission.
Who's- Motion by Commissioner Dix and second by Commissioner Powell. All those in favor of that motion, which be known by the sign aye. Aye. Are there any opposers to that? Motion passed. Thank you very much, Mr. Hudson.
I'll go on to the next plan amendment. Let me skip ahead here a little bit on the slides. Again, Mark Hudson, Planning Commission staff. As I said, this plan amendment has a lot of similar attributes to the previous one, and you'll note this as I go through my presentation. This is a little bit north of the one you just previously heard. Generally located north of East Newsom Road, east of Paul Buckman Highway, south of Williams Road, and west of North Wilder Road. And you can see the star, again, it's located in the northeastern quadrant of the city of Plant City. Again, it involves a pending voluntary annexation. This shows you the plan amendment site in question, surrounded by the dashed lavender line. You can see the jurisdictional boundaries in the dashed blue line, and those lands that are encircled by the dashed blue line to the south, that's the part of North Park Isles. The remaining lands to the west, north, and east are in unincorporated county and will remain there for the foreseeable future. Predominantly been developed with agricultural uses and large lot single-family homes in unincorporated county. As a way of a little bit of background, again, this was privately initiated, a voluntary annexation. Again, a regular plan amendment. This is a little bit larger than the previous one at 128 acres. However, the request is the same, to go from unincorporated Hillsborough County Residential 1 to Plant City Residential 6. Unlike the last plan amendment site, this one is not in what I would call active agricultural uses. It's being used as pasture land. And this shows you a little bit how the site looks today. And I wanted to go around where I could and show you a little bit of the character of the area, particularly to the east, north, and west. Those areas that will remain in unincorporated county. Those areas to the south are currently undeveloped. This is looking north on Wilder Road near Midway Road, which is the major intersection that is close to this plan amendment site. This is looking north on Native Gardens Drive. This is on the western portion of the property. And Williams Road is north of this plan amendment site. These are large lots that are quite deep, but this gives you an idea of some of the homes that have been built along Williams Road. A couple of examples. This is looking north on Wilder Road. Again, many lands are still in agriculture use or large lot residential uses. And another example of a home on Wilder Road. This shows you the future land use map as it stands today. You can see the dark yellow color of Plant City. There's residential 6, and the light green of residential 1 in unincorporated county. If this map amendment was approved, it would match the same color that the remainder of North Park Isles and this portion of Plant City currently have. What is its potential? It built out. Again, it could have 128 units in unincorporated county. Based on 6 units per acre, it could have up to 769 dwelling units. Like the last plan amendment, it does not meet the location required either in Hillsborough County's plan or Plant City's plan, so its expectation would be it would be developed out exclusively with residential uses. Our staff did review this based on the Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan. Very similar policy selection as the past one, dealing with neighborhood conservation, residential development, enhanced hometown charm. There are regulations concerning annexations, protection of the natural environment, growth management, provision of public facilities, and agricultural compatibility. We did notify everyone within 250 feet of this plan amendment site. I did receive one call from someone who resides adjacent to it. They're particularly inquiring about access on a private road that garners access to their property. I informed them that it was highly unlikely that this property would garner access from that, and facilitated their contact with Plant City staff to be part of the process of the plan development rezoning where the access points would be identified. However, I think the access through a private road would be very unlikely to occur. Again, per the last one, there are regulations in Plant City's code that will require buffering and setbacks for this development from those existing county uses. The Planning Commission, regarding your recommendation here today, again, we will be seeing the Planning Board with this presentation on June 26th, and the scheduled transmittal public hearing with the City Commission is July 22nd. With that, our staff recommends that PCCPA 1901 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan, and to forward this recommendation to the Plant City Commission. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. And as you know, the applicant's agent is here to answer any questions as well.
Okay, thank you.
Truett Gardner, 400 North Ashley Drive again, here to answer any questions. Does the Almo work? If so, Commissioner Green, you asked a great question that I look at every day because there's so many moving parts with this, just to give you some perspective. I'll have to excuse my personal writing on this. But the area in red is the currently improved North Park Isle PD. The area in blue is what you just voted on, and the area in yellow is the subject of this application. And tomorrow we'll be submitting with the, oh, it's not up? I thought I got the thumbs up.
Video feed from CMR. I've already hit that. Almost not working.
That's okay. I can go completely old school. Just hold it up. The area in red is the currently approved North Park Isle PD. The area in blue is the matter that you just heard and voted on. And then the area in yellow on the north is the subject of this application. And then tomorrow we'll be submitting a revised PD to not only amend the existing, but also include the blue and the yellow. We also, as Mark mentioned, have a pending annexation request on both parcels. And so just to give you the overall perspective of what's going on, what's out there, this is it. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Commissioner Green?
Question. Just curious, would this be like a large-scale phase development? And if so, would it be undertaken more like a village concept?
Definitely a village concept. They're in for permit approval right now on aspects of phase 1. So we're trying to really marry some aspects of phase 2 with phase 1. But yes, it will be developed over time. Some aspects are in process now to get moving forward, but this is all happening as quickly as we can so we can kind of match things up and let them flow all in one development period.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dickinson?
Same issues, elementary school and high school, just to let the applicant know there may be issues in the future.
Thank you.
Public comment? Commissioners have any other comments? I can entertain a motion. Commissioner Green?
I'm sorry, Madam Chairman, I think I got him confused here. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I move for a finding of Plant City Comp Plan Amendment 1901, being consistent with the Imagine 2040 Plant City Comprehensive Plan.
Been moved by Commissioner Green, second by Commissioner Dix. All those in favor of the motion, let it be known by the sign aye. Aye. Are there any oppositions? Motion is carried. Thank you. We're done. Meeting is adjourned.